What's up, everybody out there on the internet watching this? Welcome to Bridge the Gap. My name is Holden Stephan Roy. Joining me today is Uncle Dre, and this is the show where we take interesting people such as yourself. We walk through the story of your life, and we learn about you and extract some knowledge nuggets, and then the conversation goes as it kind of goes in its natural order of things. To start this off, I got a big ol' opening question and a pre-question to that. And the pre-question just kind of sets the context. So for that one, if you could just let us know a little bit, like, where you start your life and the beginning parts of it take place, because that's where the opening question brings us.
My life, okay? So I was born in Montreal.
That's dope.
My dad was a Greek immigrant, and my mom was, I don't know, like British mixed, Scottish, Irish type stuff that had been here for a few generations.
Which part of Montreal?
Pierrefonds. I was born at the Jewish General, but I lived in Pierrefonds for most of it.
Fresh.
Right close to the Lafleurs, if you know it, the one I'm talking about.
Yo, my mom be living on Gouin and Alexander right now.
I don't remember.
It's where the Lafleurs is.
Alexander. I was right off Gouin though. I was Lalonde and Gouin.
That's it. Lalonde. Alexander's the other street. Lalonde is the one she lives on, next to the Couche-Tard that used to be there. Like, that's my mom's crib. Is the place right next to the Couche-Tard.
Holy shit, man! That's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy. Small world.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah. So I grew up there. Mostly. So my mom was Anglo. So I went to. First, I went to Greek schools. Actually, my dad had me in these private Greek schools.
We're going to run through all that, but now we know it's in Pierrefonds. That's the important part. We're going to start it proper, and then we can get into all that thing. So I do got the opening question, and it's a bit of a story. And it starts with my girlfriend, and she's washing the dishes, and she's got her phone out, and she's playing that Black Eyed Peas song, the I Got a Feeling, ooh. She vibing, she dancing, she doing her thing. I look at her, and I'm going, when the fuck did this song become chores music? Because that was like a big moment for me. I was like, this is a song that people put on now when they work out, when they, they're doing some chores, they're doing some stuff like that. They're trying to go back to a more entertaining place in their mind because they're doing some boring right now. And the reason I say that is because if you think about this track in particular and you run it back about 10 years, this is the middle of the night highlight song. This is like when that song came on, the whole place turned up and everybody united and we all drunkenly danced. And 10 years went by. The song didn't change at all because it's a song. But we changed so much that the context of our lives, that it is now like this chores music environment, which was like pretty big for me because I guess I'm getting a little older. But with that, I started thinking about the 20-year-olds and how they have no idea that what they are turning up to today is the future soundtrack to their dishes washing experiences. And they don't know that when we find their turn-up music, we just start washing dishes to it. That's just how we take their music when we find it. And it's just the cycle of life. And the reason I go with that is because, like, we all make music and whatnot. And I find that when we explore the musical journey, people start at the oddest place. They start in this adolescent phase. They start to form their identity. They're like, I started finding rap at this age. I started falling in love with hip-hop at that point. I started writing at this point. And I'm like, none of that's the start of your journey. Because most people don't like if you're 20, maybe it's different. But most people don't like start off growing up listening to hip hop and writing bars. It's just not how most of it is. And so like if you think about the music that we consume and influence us, it's probably like back in the Jewish General, there was some music playing in the fucking room with the doctor that little baby you was absorbing. Like I say that because I can remember being like 5. Up in like Côte Saint Luc, we got these, my dad's got these like gray boxes in the apartment, the amp, the radio, the tape deck, all these wires and such going out to all these speakers, and it would take like 20 minutes to set it up. He'd be busting like Led Zeppelin tapes and other such things during the day. And then at nighttime though, we talking straight MC Mario Club mix type stuff coming right at nighttime, right? So, it's just like the night vibes of that. My mom's though, she's more with the musicals and she likes fucking, soft rock love songs and discos and things like that. Completely different vibes. This shit, I had no control over. When they played it, they played it. That's what it was. I still had to listen. So all that to say, this influenced me greatly to this day. And I was hoping though, because if we think about our journeys, it kind of goes back to that age when we really start remembering shit. If you could bring us back to the youngest Uncle Dre that you can remember being and walk us through a little bit about what it sounded like to be you, and feel free to go on about the Greek schools and stuff too, because all that shit's also interesting. Let's bring it back to the young days of Uncle Dre.
So musically, the first stuff I remember would be either my mom stuff. She was listening to Janis Joplin a lot. She's probably still one of my favorite singers today, and that might be because of that. A lot of other stuff too. Like she liked a lot of classic rock, but Janis Joplin, Elton John was one of her favorites. And I'm not a huge fan of Elton John, but definitely like there's a few songs that I get down with, and it might be honestly because of her. So that's one memory, just her listening to music. And then
what kind of technology was she using? Was it like tapes, radio, vinyls?
At the time, it would have been tapes and vinyls. I remember she had a pretty awesome system that I didn't realize was awesome, obviously, at that age until like way, way later. But I remember the name was Harman Kardon. And somebody told me later on that was like really, really good stuff. So she was actually into it. I didn't realize. To me, obviously, it didn't mean anything. So yeah, it would have been mostly tapes and vinyl while cleaning. A lot of tapes in the car too. She always had something playing in the car, like a little rack of tapes in the back seat she'd be picking from. And then same thing with my dad. With him, it was mostly, as far as music, it would have been in the car, and it would have been 99% Greek music. So I'm like, I can start naming off a couple of things now, but I'm not, it's hard words. It's not going to make sense, right? Like,
one or two Greek people I know are going to be like, yeah, and everyone else will be like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, if they've been exposed to that generation, then they'll recognize Glikeria for sure. That she was, top tier. I think, from what I understand back then. Obviously, again, this is going back before my actual time. There's a guy, Mikis Theodorakis, I think is the name. He's like a crazy composer guy. He's got, a lot of stuff that I can remember from my dad, and then a whole bunch of stuff that I don't even remember the names, but I'll hear once in a while, a Greek family function or something like that, and be like, oh, I remember this from way, way, way back. So yeah, that takes care of them.
How different is Greek music though? Like, what's that like? What's the vibe like? I mean, just like to give like, I guess genre wise, like how would that sound?
Well, there's a few different genres, right? Like pop music here. Again, I have very limited knowledge, but there's definitely different moods of it, right? Like there's dancey stuff, there's sad stuff, there's romantic stuff, there's a lot of political stuff actually. If you imagine, like most people, if I've played Greek music around them, they think it's Indian music.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? When I hear Indian music, I can tell a big difference between Indian and Greek, but I can actually remove myself and be like, I see why people think that, because there's a lot of similar tones. But I think, like, to me, there's big differences too. So yeah, just to try and get you a vibe, like,
that's cool.
A lot of moods. There's a lot of dancing going on. Actually, that'll take me segue into the Greek school thing. We actually so I went to Greek school until grade 3, and then my parents split up, and my mom was like, "Fuck that Greek school shit," and put me in an English school.
So like we're saying, in Montreal, you went to like a fully Greek school, and it's like one of those private education facilities, like alt education.
Not alt. It was a legit school looking building, had a park, everything. And it was a private school. And so here's the trick. What they did is they teach almost all the subjects in French. So like math, history, anything that has to do with Canada and not actually Greek is taught in French. And then they have a Greek class and a Greek mythology or history class. So the percentages work. So they count as a private French school. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's tax purposes or whatever, right?
Probably just laws of language.
Exactly. But then, yeah, they'll teach you a couple of Greek classes, and then in the day they'd have like a half an hour English class. You know what I mean? Out of the whole day. So that part was interesting. But when my mom took me out of that school and she put me in an Anglo school that was up Guam, called Herbert Purcell. And when I was in that school, my dad flipped out and he was like, no, he's got to learn Greek still. So he put me in a Saturday school. So now I'm going to school 6 days a week and I fucking hate it. And my last class.
Saturday schools.
my last class of the Saturday school is Greek dance. So I've actually like taken Greek dance in school, and there was, that regardless of whether I liked it or not, obviously I hated being there because it was school on a Saturday. That definitely had an influence on me, like musically and rhythmically. You know what I mean?
Nah, for sure. I mean, honestly, I feel like taking those dance classes when you're young, you're gonna have a love or hate relationship with it. But I kind of wish I had been forced into some goofy ass dance class, because now I'm like trying to figure this shit out in my 30s, and it's a little more tricky than having those foundational 2 steps and basic
I feel the
steps
same way.
trained into you at like 7, 10, whatever it may be.
Yeah, it's
Like,
so true.
I still remember karate katas from like 8 years old.
Yeah, I did a little karate when I was a kid too. That's awesome. No, but I hated being in that class, and I did skip a lot of that when I could get away with it. But at the same time, it's like I wish I had paid a little more attention with the dance, because looking back now, it's like, man, people love if you can dance. You know what I mean? Like, girls love it. Your life at a party if you can dance, regardless of what you're trying to do. Right? It's a confident booster kind of thing.
Yeah, you can argue that it's almost becoming like a requirement for the live performance these days. If you look at the trends, not maybe the underground, but the trends, everybody be a dancer now to some degree. Yeah. Even if it's just a little turn up, bouncing and shit.
That happens in waves too, right? Like if you go back to the days of Maestro Fresh West's early stuff, or Big Daddy Kane, like if they weren't actually dancing while rapping, they had dancers directly behind them. You know what I mean? Right. Kid and play and stuff, right? So yeah, maybe that comes and goes.
I actually think what happened is a lot of the young ones went back on YouTube and saw a lot of the old ones, and then compared it to some of these like 2000 shows where it's like 3 guys on a stadium stage, and it's like the aesthetics at the bigger scale. The dancing adds a lot.
For sure, definitely. And then I don't know what happened with sort of I want to say my generation or whatever, but like the 90s of hip hop, where it was like, no, we don't dance. That's gay. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
All sorts of like thing. It was almost like everyone was too gangster, too hard to dance. I don't know if it was like a extreme sort of pushback against MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice owning the charts for a while or something, but that definitely was a thing.
I could see how that played out. A lot of like the pop side, because you can see the attitude still almost to this day. Like you have a bunch of like people who focus heavy on the technique side of things, and they like, all the gimmicks in the world are the worst things you've ever heard of. I'm like, well, not all of them, but like, even Ice Cube was willing to do his little walk across the stage there, a little sea walk, and like you gotta have a little 1-2 move, I think. But I also think the music wasn't dancey. Like you listen to a lot of those beats and you listen to a lot of the vibes, and it's like, yeah, I kind of get it. It's not like the most dance. It was
definitely more about moving your head or your neck, right?
Yeah,
than actually dancing.
Like posted up on the wall.
You brought up Ice Cube. Like I think it was when he was in West Side Connection, they had that song "Gangsters Don't Dance, We Boogie." So it was almost like they realized dance had to come back into it, but you had to ease people into it. Like, we're not dancing, it's just boogie. It's totally gangster. You know what I mean?
Like, look at "Lean Back" by Fat Joe. I mean, it's still a dance.
It really is a dance. It's one of the simplest dances you've ever seen in your life, but it's definitely a dance.
And I watched the whole place turn into a line dancer leaning back because I was in high school for that, right? So all the high school dances, when that would come on, everybody would be like, lean back.
Yeah. Yo, one step away from square dancing, man.
A lot of this shit look like square dancing if you're being practical, my guy.
Yeah, for real. But that's that's the simpleness to sort of get everyone into it, right? Like,
and I'm not even knocking square dancing. Let's be real. No, the Macarena was lit. That should come on at a wedding. The whole place turn up. Everybody does it, and it's dope.
If you, I don't know about now, but a few years ago, if you got married and you went and saw a DJ, they will tell you, like, there's a list of songs that are like, okay, do you want us to not play this song on purpose? Because people almost expect it, but it got to the point where it was like almost played out. And like we got a DJ when I got married. I'm not anymore, but anyway, years ago. And the DJ was like, okay, so do you want us to not play the chicken dance, Macarena? I feel like there was 2 other songs, that they threw on that list. And it's like, I mean, like the songs are cheesy, but you can't fuck with the effect that they have, right? Like they make the party big up. Even if there's 3 people that are like, fuck that song.
Is YMCA on that list by any chance?
Usually.
Was YMCA on the list?
Yeah, that might have been there too. Yeah, young man.
Nah, but I get it.
Fun song.
I honestly, I don't always like the songs, but you can't deny that the effect that it has on a room full of multi-generations is wild.
Exactly. Yeah, sometimes you just need that earworm, right? Like it's just, we all sort of almost a suspension of disbelief, where we all are like, okay, we know this is corny and simple, but like we're here to party. Let's just party, have fun, right?
Do it.
And that's more important.
But still, as cool as you got that foundation for dancing back when you was young, so you was running through that. You were listening to a bunch of different musics. What kind of, like, at that point in time, though, were you interested in music, or was it more like you had other passions and hobbies that were filling up your mind?
You know what? I mean, it was so young. Like, by the time I got into hip hop, honestly, I think any passions or hobbies I would have had up to that point was like riding my bike outside and playing Nintendo with my neighbor after school. You know what I mean? So it was like music was always in the back, but I think it really, like, I got into it more because of my brother, probably. Like, he's 10 years older than me, so he was way ahead, right? And obviously I looked up at him like way huge, right? He was the coolest guy ever, like to the point where he got an earring. I was like, I want to get an earring. I'm like 7 years old telling my parents I want to get an earring. He's 17 at the time. But yeah, he listened to a lot of stuff, but I remember him playing Ice Cube and me being like, what is this? This is crazy music. And I got into hip hop that way. But the first stuff that I actually liked for myself, actually before, let me go back. I remember hearing Fight for Your Right by the Beastie Boys on TV. And I remember liking it and thinking the video was fun, but not really equating it with like, oh, this is hip hop. I like hip hop. I remember it just being like, this is a crazy video that's on TV that I'm enjoying, right? So shortly after that, I would have started hearing Maestro Fresh West. That's the first stuff I remember listening to and being like, I need my own copy of this and I need to get into this.
Do you know how old you were when that was?
I want to say 9.
Yeah, that's still pretty dope.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I want to say 9.
Yo, the power of an older brother for having like early music taste is wild, right? Because like I'm the older brother in my life, so like I had to get to like high school to get unlocking the music, whereas my brother, he's not that much younger, but still in like grade 4 he got tapped into whatever I was tapped into.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It definitely helps as far as, and like you build an identity, right? Because at first you're kind of like copying your older brother's identity, or I was anyway. But then eventually you develop into your own person, and sometimes that goes similar to a brother or sometimes different, right? But yeah, so I'm thinking Maestro Fresh West is the first tape I ever bought for myself. That's followed wild. Shortly by MC Hammer. And yeah, people make fun of MC Hammer and stuff, but I was into it.
Yo,
it was
there
like,
was one of them tapes is good. The one with the Addams Family song on it and shit is like a pretty good album.
That's the third one, and to be honest, I actually have 3 of his albums. His first one was Let's Get It Started, I think. Correct me if the titles are wrong. And the second one is the one that was You Can't Touch This. That's the big one. That was called Please Hammer, Don't Hurt Him. And then after that, it was Too Legit to Quit. And I think that's the one that had the Addams Family song on it.
Like, I'm not saying it's the most amazing stuff, but like it's enjoyable music. It's
catchy, good tunes. And that's what Hammer was about. People, again, give him a hard time. Oh, it was cheesy, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but he was just trying to dance and have a party. Like, he wasn't trying to tell you about, the streets or the, how good of a rapper he was. He was literally just kind of having a party.
Yeah. And he was very okay with getting a bag. And all things considered, if you look at what music comes to today, MC Hammer is a good example of what music would become, good or bad. Because a lot of the things he did, I think, are being done today to great effect. Absolutely. Whether or not people like that. He created a blueprint. However you want to take that.
I don't know if he created it, but he definitely brought
reinforced one
forward for hip hop. He sort of was one of the originators, definitely. And yeah, like, I mean, it's it's hard to hate on it if you take it for what it is. You know what I mean? If you're expecting to be blown away by wordplay and lyrics and bars and stuff, like, you're not going to get that. But if you want to dance and if you want to see girls' booties move and you want to get people throwing their hands up in the air and stuff like that, then that was the stuff to do back then. Like, that's, and it is today too. Like, if you want to party, party. Nobody's partying to like the most lyrical, you know, Vinny Paz song or whatever people want to get into, you know?
No, that's true.
And I'm not even dissing it. It's like, there's a place for that. But at the place I was at,
those are the guys in the corner at the party with the phone ciphering over guys' beats.
Yeah, and I've been that guy. I usually am in the corner at a party. That's not really a music thing. It's more of an antisocial thing. But anyway.
Nothing wrong with it, but it's a good point. MC Hammer you could throw on at a party today, and a lot more people like it than they want to admit.
It's true. It's true. I discovered that a while ago in myself, because years after being a fan of MC Hammer and getting into a lot more sort of, you know, technical stuff, I remember being like, man, I can't believe I like that, blah, 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 and almost hating on my own past self in a silly kind of way. But then being at a club and they're playing all the new stuff, and then they go back to, you can't touch this, or, you know what I mean? And it's like, man, like, everybody's dancing. Like, hate all you want, but you're looking like a sour hater if you're hating on it, you know?
Yeah, it's like a lot of folk don't fully follow the environmental impact of music creation. So, like, if your whole life is headphones walking up the street, that's a vibe, and that's gonna cater to a certain sound. If you in cars, and you see this a lot where car cultures, they're like, if I'm not mistaken, we can't have bouncing cars legally up here, so we don't have the same kind of car culture that exists in a place where candy paint matters and all this other such. So it's like the music reflects so much the environment and lifestyles of the people. So a lot of times I find like people just don't understand that the music is just designed for an entire lifestyle or vibe that you just don't live. So like there's like a Rosetta Stone missing in your life to unlock why that music makes sense. That's at least where I grew to with my understanding of music I don't get. That was like,
yeah, no, in my old age, I try to, if I don't like it, it's, you know, I mean, there's probably a reason beyond, oh, it's just shit or it's just garbage. You know what I mean? Like, eventually you learn it's not just about that. Like, I don't like it, that's fine. But to someone, it means something. And usually if you dig a little deeper, even if you don't like it and you think it's trash, it ends up, you can find talent in it somewhere, even if it's not something you're into, right? So, but yeah, that's old man talk.
Nah, I hear it. A lot of the times, the people in my life aren't young men anymore. It's just what happens when you hit your 30s, I find. But,
30?
I'm in my 30s. I don't know.
I know, I'm talking about me.
Nah, that's fair, but like, I can imagine it gets worse. But like, the idea is like, still worth having some of the conversations, because having these epiphanies and the acknowledgments that like, yo, maybe it's not trash, I'm just old. That's a conversation I know a lot of people in their soul need to start having. Like,
it's growing, quick. Man.
And it's dope that people are willing to acknowledge that.
The main thing to remember is like, if you don't like it, there's a real good chance it's not for you, and they didn't make it for you to like it. You know what I mean? Like, I can listen to my son's stuff. He's 13. I can listen to his stuff and be like, yeah, I don't see it, but they don't want me to see it. It's not for me. You know what I mean? It's for my son and his generation. So he's enjoying it. So they're successfully doing something, even if, you know, sometimes I think it's trickery or whatever, right? Like, you can have these arguments all day about talent and who's doing what and blah, blah, blah. But that's just like, it's all the same with generations.
And like, as much as like other styles, right? Like, take Griselda. I'm going to be real with you. I do not know what the fuck West Side Gun is talking about most of the time, because I don't have a background in sports, I don't have a background in fashion, and I don't understand Buffalo street slang. Yet, I'm able to fully appreciate his music and love it. But if you're being real, I've tried to do lyrical breakdowns of West Side Gun. I stopped trying to interpret his bars after the first review. That's how hard and impossible the task is for me.
I mean, it's a throwback to Wu-Tang, right? Like, when they first came out, the beats were amazing. Not too many people were hating on the beats. And a lot of the rhymes were dope, but there was a lot of shit that I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. and like I could relate to 1 out of 3 sentences, and then the rest it was just like he's talking about apartment buildings in some place that I've never been anywhere near yet. You know what I mean? Or like just slang for things that let's be honest, a lot of it they made up and popularized, right? And some of it now even we might use, but like they were talking about Shaolin, and I'm like, Shaolin, like you guys do not look like monks, even if you know what I mean. Like you're not from there, obviously.
Well, the whole 36 chambers thing is like wild philosophy that RZA had to put into a book.
Mm-hmm.
He literally had to write a book to explain it to people.
Yeah, but is that part of what makes it awesome, right? Because like if you understand something completely the first time, maybe it has a lot less replay value, and maybe you know when there's stuff that you're still confused about, a little mystery obviously adds a little flavor to it. But then like when you listen to something a third time, even sometimes involuntarily, right? And you're like, you hear something that you didn't really catch, you'd be like, oh man, I understand that better now. This is actually deeper than I thought. You can get into it more, right? For instance, there's a guy, Aesop Rock, I'm sure you've heard of.
Oh my gosh, he's incredible. He has an album coming.
I can listen to his songs 10 years later and catch some shit I didn't catch and be like, holy fuck. And at first that stuff is daunting sometimes because you listen to it and like the first few listens of Aesop Rock I had, I was like, okay, he can spit, but like I can't follow it. So I really didn't get into it. But then you hear a couple more songs when you're searching for stuff and he's featured on someone else and you get into it more. And like that, like to that point where literally 10 years later, I'll hear something off of his Labor Days album and be like, man, I never knew what that was. And I didn't even catch that. And like, it's still relevant or mind blowing. You know what I mean? And I think that adds to it for a lot of people, while at the same time scaring some people away.
I definitely hear where you're coming from. I'm enamored by Aesop Rock's use of language. At some point, you saw that graphic of the most distinct words, and you're like, what? Him? He's number one by such a margin, so you go check out his shit. Yeah. The truth is, though, if it wasn't for Genius, I don't really know that I would have tried as hard for like his lyrics until the later part of his career, when he's like doing the "Hey Kirby," which like, when he gets to that part and he makes the effort to kind of try to like, I guess, appease the fact that people don't necessarily have the energy anymore to like dig that deep, and it's like, to me it's a little cool, but it's still like I reviewed the spiritual guide world. Nobody agreed in the comments on what anything meant, so I'm like, okay, cool. He's still like good with it, but I think there is like he's a high difficulty consumption artist, honestly. Like you have to really be into linguistic poetry analysis to make sense of what he's doing.
And you have to be willing to give it some time.
Which is kind of the same thing you could say about Griselda. You have to be really into the jargon code they use, and then it makes all the sense in the world once you learn that. And I love that.
Actually, the Aesop Rock change that you're talking about, where he goes to like the Hey Kirby style, I remember noticing that too. And actually, I think it might go back to what you were saying earlier about surroundings influencing your style, because you got to imagine when Aesop Rock was coming out and when he had all his very fast, complicated stuff, like he was in New York rapping with like all these guys. And at that time, that's what you did, right? You had to jam as many syllables and many rhymety rhymes into everything and also have multiple meanings and stuff. And then at some point, maybe he was just like, yo, I'm too old for that. And I got an established fan base, so I could probably chill on that a little bit and maybe make it easier. And I don't know, maybe. Just occurred to me now as you were saying that.
I think it was like a little bit of that mixed with a little bit like I'd rather broaden my fan base a little bit, be a little more easy to digest, because the music side of it got cooler too. Like it's almost like he made more of an effort to popify his sound. I know people don't like that idea, but I mean, just go listen to 2007 versus 2017. They are wildly
he's got phases too though, right? Like he had different producers. There was times he was doing his own stuff, so like between his albums you can see such huge differences, right? Like if you listen to his Bazooka Tooth, which although a lot of it's produced by LP, is not one of my favorite albums, but LP is one of my favorite producers. But I like his stuff, or Aesop stuff with Blockhead better. I find it a lot like the organic.
He's doing a project with him right now.
Are they?
right
Woo,
now.
getting
They
back
just
into
dropped a
studio, right?
single. They just
That's
dropped a
amazing.
single. I don't like to listen to singles before the albums come, but they just dropped a single on Friday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Aesop's been busy then, because he just dropped something on I think it was an Atmosphere song too, a couple weeks ago.
He's living in a barn. Not a barn fully, but he's basically out in the
Yeah.
middle of fucking nowhere by himself, fucking doing
Yeah.
drugs and living with his cats and making music. And from what I understand, he's happier than he's ever been in life. He travels around the world. He just has experiences and like writes. I'm like, this guy's got
The dream, man. That's the
the life.
dream. Like, holy fuck, that's the dream. I'm getting excited just thinking about that shit, man. Imagine.
If I could do that in the middle of the city, that's the dream.
Yeah. Well, that's for you, man. You
Yeah.
keep your city dream. I'd prefer the outside and be with no one around me, basically.
I want to okay. The dream involves like space in the city, so I have the isolation in the city, and it's the choice to go and be with people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's hard to have a lot of space. Now we're talking expensive, right?
I'm a very ambitious person.
I appreciate that about you, buddy.
Yo, the way I see it is dream for the stars, and even 10% of that'll be better than not dreaming for the stars.
Better than not moving, that's for sure.
So yo, let's run it back to you though. I love this shit, by the way. This is the show. This is how it works. Tangent, story, whatever, just moves. But so like you're basically then, I guess, in the early phases, getting into hip hop. You're discovering it all in the pre-teenage phases. At what point do you like start to move it a little bit past like I like this to like I can start rapping or something? Does that happen in the early phases, or does that happen like way later on?
So consciously, way later on. As I'm listening to this stuff, just to put it in a little context, at my age now, we're talking mid 90s, let's say, right? I'm into hip hop. I actually like it. I have my own tastes and stuff. Everything's on tape for me still. I haven't upgraded to CDs yet. So if you have, it's hard to imagine now, but it was a pain in the ass to skip a song on a tape. So you would end up just listening to it all the way through. A lot of times, even if some of the songs were not your favorite songs, right? Like you'd appreciate and sort of dive into a whole project more. So as I'm doing that with tapes, and again, I don't have any of my own money because I'm a little kid. So I'm getting like one tape every, so often. But I'm demolishing that tape for like a month. Like I'm listening to it 2-3 times a day. And eventually I'm rapping along with it just from having listened to it so much that it's memorized now, right? So I'm going along with Maestro Fresh West sometimes. It's hard to keep up with him on some of his tracks, but yeah. So subconsciously it's happening at that point, right? I'm sort of developing the skills, but I'm not doing my own stuff yet. And then I actually sort of got away from hip hop for a couple of years and ventured into like grunge and heavy metal and stuff. There was still some hip hop happening, but I was very into exploring a lot of like darker things, like Nine Inch Nails and Tool and the grunge, Nirvana, Soundgarden, and even into like what they called new metal, like the Korn and Deftones and stuff. And then that almost brought me back into hip hop because with Korn and Deftones, there was some hip hop crossover stuff. And again, like I didn't ever fully leave hip hop, but I was paying a lot more attention to heavier stuff. Once I got back into hip hop after, I started finding a lot of the underground stuff with cyphers. And once I started listening to and checking out cyphers, that's when I was like, I can fucking do this, because it seemed a lot more daunting even as a teen to like write a song. You might even say I was lazy back then too, so I was like, who cares, you know what I mean?
Just before, so
yeah,
at what point do you move to Burlington?
12 or 13.
So you basically start off in Montreal, and then y'all move over to Burlington. So a lot of this part where you're like kind of evolving into the grunge also has like a scene shift too, right?
Yeah.
There's like moving to, I don't remember, is Burlington small? I really can't remember how big it is.
When I moved here, it was about 105,000 people. Now it's closer to 200, so it's much bigger now. It's been growing, good or bad. But yeah, so it was not a huge city, but it was definitely, there was a little bit of culture shock, and it's weird because growing up in Montreal and the school I went to, you saw everything, right? From white to black to Asian, like all types of Asian, like everyone. There was a little bit of everyone. You know what I mean? Like my best friend and his brother were two black kids, Simon and Chris. My first like girlfriend, you know what I mean, was an Indian girl named Rupa. You know, my other best friend was, you know, the blonde, blue-eyed kid named Adam. So it was like very diverse. And then I moved here, and it was all blonde, blue-eyed kids named Adam. Like at that point when I moved here, there was nobody else. Like it was all white people. There was no diversity, right? And that might have played a part because my surroundings, all the kids that I was around, and even the media, you know, in my general area was a lot more rock sort of oriented.
That makes big sense to me.
So that could have played a part just by the influence around me.
Say
for sure.
Word. You're making me think about stuff because I went to Wager, which was, let's say, not the whitest high school. So I'm learning about like fucking TOK and random reggaeton things and a lot of shit that honestly only when I was in that environment did I ever consume. And then I went to John Abbott, where, let's be real, it's a lot more Adams than not. And it was like wildly all of a sudden I'm into like As They Lay Dying and like a lot of like thrash and like a lot of more like rock shit. And then I left. I ended up in a call center where hip hop and shit was a lot more popping, and now I'm back in the rap sphere and I stopped playing bass and like, but I played bass for a minute because I so deviated in terms of the environment.
I actually played bass too a little bit when I was a kid. In music class, I played bass, and then just a tiny little bit outside of for fun. Like I never got good or anything, or was in an official band, but I had a couple jam sessions with buddies and shit like that.
I would say we tried to be an official band, but truth be told, dude had a lot of weed and was very liberal. And I end up writing like 1 or 2 songs and a couple bass lines, but like mostly we jammed, and it was like we'd play like The Creep for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And the bass line isn't riveting. And you start realizing that like sometimes it's
You're
not
talking about Creep like from Radiohead?
Yeah, it's like doom 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 doom, because you're not a good bassist, so you're not like knowing about how to like get tricky. You're just trying to like follow 4 fucking notes with a bunch of guys, but then you realize you're playing it for like 10-15 minutes straight, and you're like, and you start having some epiphanies. And then if people aren't focused, anyway, I ended up enjoying the solo nature of rapping.
Yeah, for sure. Fuck, I forget where we were.
You are moving to Ontario and being influenced by culture and the shock of it all, and it got you more into grunge and shit, and then you deviated, and then a bit later on you're finding the underground and cyphers, which is where I was going to ask you, how did you find cyphers?
Just online. Probably when I was 16, 17. So we're talking like 95, 96, somewhere in there. It started being like the Napster era happened, where you could just go and download a million things.
But that's like super early Napster era.
That's what I did. Oh, yeah. Well, maybe it was a couple years later than what I said, but I'm trying to just remember where my age was. But so that's when I started finding all sorts of underground, let's say, hip hop and stuff like that, right? Like, no, you know what? Let's take it back a little bit to Lyricist Lounge and Sound Bombing. Probably what really got me searching that stuff, because that was on Much Music, believe it or not, when TV had music on it still. I remember seeing a couple songs from Lyricist Lounge and Sound Bombing, and that's probably what got me looking for underground stuff.
Yo, that's wild.
Both of those records, if I'm not mistaken, have like little cypher skits in them. For sure, the Lyricist Lounge one.
That's wild.
And then, that's when sort of I think my love really.
You're in
really
like Burlington, Ontario, on some geek shit, discovering the Lyricist Lounge shit, which I'm discovering like a couple days ago is tearing up fucking the underground New York City scene at that time.
Yeah. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I think at that time, Much Music and stuff like that, we're still actually focusing on music videos, and it wasn't like, it was mostly mainstream, obviously, because they got to do that. But there was these shows that would have like you know, more sort of either localized or underground scenes, not just hip hop, right? Like there was the alternative one called The Wedge, I think it was. And like you would find stuff that you wouldn't really see that much on the radio or hear that much on the radio. And then, yeah, once the internet sort of was more available to me, I just started downloading like a madman, and I was consuming so much different music till I found, you know, some of my favorite stuff.
So, yeah, as well, because like I remember in high school I had access to all this shit, but I also like by this point Napster and shit is full of, or LimeWire is full of viruses, so you're afraid. The government's threatening to put you, like suing you and shit. Like it's not so you. I never felt like encouraged to go download hella archives because I was a coward in high school and shit. So like hearing like just this, because I've read a book about the data troves of like available music at this time before anyone really cared, and you basically had everything. Like if you knew where to look,
it was
like
very
music
difficult.
That doesn't exist today.
It was very difficult to search for something and not find it on Napster. Even stuff that I thought to myself was like sort of rare, it would always come up. Now sometimes it'd be, you know, a weird link or something like that didn't work or didn't download and blah blah blah. But like it was up there. There was so much up there, so much available. And yeah, I don't know how long it was, but it felt like there was a couple years before they really like clamped down on it and started threatening to sue everyone and stuff like that, where it was just free reign, man. Like you just download as much as you want and make your mixed CDs. And like at that time too, it was like CD players were starting to be able to read data CDs as well as just wave CDs, so you could fit like 130 songs on a CD and put it in your car, you know what I mean, and you're just set. Like it almost maybe devalued some of it a little bit, but at the same time, like opening me up to so much.
Those data discs were big though. Like I remember you could fit at the time Eminem's entire discography, including hidden cuts, onto one of those discs. And I had one, and it had all of that shit, like these random cuts from like back in the day, some of the mixtape shits, and it was like, yo, if you were in high school with one of those discs, man, it was like, because it was actually better than like when you were in that moment, you're on the bus and all you got is that one CD because you don't really want to be pulling out so you went from like being kind of stuck to picking that one CD you know you can commit to, and it gave you like a little bit more space. So I guess it kind of devalued the one album you obsessed over and gave you a little bit more like choice. But a lot of that was like convenience, man. It was like I'm putting on Green Day International Super Hits because I know I can get through this whole shit.
Yeah. And I think that's where the whole backpacker thing comes from, is from before that, when you had to carry around 10, 12 CDs for the whole day if you actually wanted to listen to your stuff. So you had a backpack with, you know, all your CDs and tapes and stuff, and, you know, a bag of whatever type things, right? So
that's fair. But yeah, I remember those days. But you were like early on it. Like a lot of people didn't have computers and internet back then.
Yeah, well, like that's the thing. Even when I was downloading all that stuff at first, it was at my buddy's house, right? Because he had the computer with the good connection. Like this is when wide, like the wide, I don't even remember what they called it now, you know, like, so at my house I had the phone, the dial-up. And then my buddy had the way better one that we all have now, right? Like it was, I believe, through the cable company at the time. So like where I'm at home and I can download one song in 20 minutes, when I'm at his house, I can down in 20 minutes, like so many songs, you know what I mean? If you have connect to people that have a lot of them, like it's so like, I kind of grew up with it, right? Just the whole internet thing, like I was sort of along for the ride. Even my English school in Montreal, so grade 4 to 6, I don't even remember when that would have been, like late 80s, was the first of 2 in either Quebec or all of Canada that had a computer with the internet enabled on it. So like, I don't remember if it was Quebec or Canada, but that was a big deal to us at the time. And like, we sent emails back and forth to this school in like Chicago or something, just, really far with a long distance kind of thing. And just the fact that we were like typing messages back and forth was like this mind blowing thing to us. Right. So I kind of grew up with it. So I was, yeah, it sounds corny, but like I was there for the downloading, man. I was there for Napster and
I'm there for like
the Metallica drummer spazzing out,
The one thing I can really remember is with dial-up is you didn't know if it was going to be 7 days or 20 minutes because it said both, and it would go back and forth a lot.
Yeah.
And often it would live on 7 days, and then
Mhm.
4 hours later it was done. And you're like,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
the weirdest psychological...
The 20 minutes was if you were like actually doing well, right? Like if your both side connections were nice, then you could count on about 20 minutes a song.
Your mom pick up the phone.
Done.
You're like, what are you going to do? She picked up the phone.
That's it. There's nothing you can do. You gotta just start over. Hopefully.
Oof. And
when
and
she's
then,
done on the phone.
Then you gotta hope it's the right track.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
That's another funny too. Like after Napster was sort of going away, and I remember LimeWire was still popping. I remember being at my girlfriend's house trying to download Beastie Boys songs or videos on LimeWire, and literally one ended up just being a porno with a Beastie Boys title. So I clicked to play, and I had it already like pretty turned up from the last 3 Beastie Boys songs I'm listening to, and this loud ass porno just comes on. And I was like, oh, okay. I think it's time to stop playing with LimeWire for the day.
LimeWire had some wild shit in that regard.
Wild shit.
But
Kazaa.
all of that whole world was like a wild time. And now,
Yeah.
But you know what I can say is, thinking about it, I appreciate paying like the $15 for Spotify or whatever, because like there's a peace of mind as a consumer of not ever going back to that era. Even people can argue that middle ground, YouTube to MP3 era. Do you remember when you wanted to switch up the songs on your phone and it's a 4-hour fucking commitment of your life? I barely switched up the songs on my phone. So like, nah, Spotify is, I know as an artist, y'all can have whatever feelings anyone wants. As an end user, it is the greatest fucking thing. It is the best
100%.
thing I buy every month. There is nothing that brings more joy to my life in terms of value of the money than Spotify.
I know exactly what you mean. I really do wish they would pay the artists more. Like, and if there was a way to reconcile that, it'd be fantastic. But I agreed. As an end user, it's just one of the greatest things ever, man. Like that allowed me to find stuff that you're not going to find at the record store anymore, or even some stuff you can't find online anymore, or it's very difficult. You know what I mean? So yeah, I know what you mean. But at the same time,
as an artist,
it hella helps my life. Being like,
I could see how it's bad for successful artists. For me, I'm like, Spotify is a fucking godsend, man. Like, it's so easy for people to be willing to check out my music because I'm on their shit already. They don't have any extra effort. And if you get a Run It Up squad, which is what all artists should be pushing for right now, you get a little more cash out the deal. A Run It Up squad is just, you get people with paid Spotify accounts to run your shit whenever the fuck they're not using it. And every 1,000 spins is 3.08 USD. And that actually turns into like a couple hundred every couple months if you actually organize and coordinate. And I'm like, yeah, I hear you, but most of us wasn't going to be moving mixtapes in the streets because none of us are salespeople. Right? Like none of us are salespeople. So, like, obviously my circle. So it's like, what are we talking about?
The whole argument with like getting more money from Spotify, where like on one hand, I would love it if the artist got more money. On the other hand, it's like some of y'all stuff I wouldn't have spent money on if it wasn't this readily available. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's not to diss the artist at all. It could be just because I wouldn't have known them on some like Spotify popped it up on my you may like this kind of type thing, right? So it's like you want more money, but your plays on Spotify does not necessarily translate to an actual sale of a ticket or merch or CD. So yeah, man, like it's hard. And obviously I'm biased because I am the end user. I'm not making money on Spotify, so it's not my fight, but I understand it. But at the same time, like I wouldn't have bought the Bjork record that I downloaded 3 days ago to listen to. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I like listening to it, but I wouldn't have spent $15 just for that record at that time, kind of thing. So it's, again, that's not to diss Bjork in any way. Like, she's definitely worthy of $50 an album or whatever. But like,
yeah,
just
I hear you.
making that argument, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't necessarily always translate.
Or like in general, like the number of times I would have copped your mixtape on the fact that I had $10 I was willing to part with is very small. However, if you're stuck on the internet, at the very least, I'll bump it, and I might end up buying your shirt or some shit. You know, like, and there's, so it's like, I just feel like a lot of the music conversation is artists be like wildly nostalgic of an era they still couldn't have competed in.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, I've now learned a lot about that era, and trust y'all like Spotify. You don't know it because you just it's way easier to get to like do small scale money, and like
you could do like you could take the math and simply work it out and be like, yo, you'll only give me $3 for 1,000 spins, blah blah blah, and it's like, but you wouldn't have got those spins if it wasn't on Spotify, right? Like, it's
exactly, and it's like
the numbers are hard again. The numbers are hard to translate.
Were you actually gonna be wherever you needed to be for 5 hours with a backpack full of tapes, literally walking up to every stranger and trying to hustle that? Or did you have people willing to do that on your behalf? Because unless you were really doing that, trust, you're making more on Spotify in the digital era.
And you can still do that if you really want to grind like that. You could take your shit off Spotify, and some people, for sure, you could just have a car and bump it at the store, and people will buy your shit. Like, it's been done, and it could still be done. You know what I mean? Like, I know myself and people around me, like, if that happened and I walk by, and I've done it before in Toronto, and like, guy will walk up and like, yo, come check my CD. I'm like, all right, man. And, you know, he throws the headphones on, or he's got in a car or whatever. And like, and I bought those CDs. So like, it's still doable. Maybe it's harder, but like,
definitely not
going to be as easy. A lot of stuff hard about the industry right now, right? Sorry?
That's why, yeah, it's like, it's definitely not going to be as easy as it was, but it's like, at the same time, I just look at it like everything's a tool, and the real money is like, yo, figure out a way to make yourself a bookable artist, and trust there's money in the show game. You just have to get all your ducks in a row, like press kits, and, you know, like look into what it is to be a booking agent, and all these different terms that people are like mad at Spotify for. But yo, even on album sales, you still wouldn't have gotten as much as getting $5,000 to go do a show where you can then sell your shirt, or, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I'll have to say that's neither here nor there.
And let's be honest, like, who's getting $5,000 to do a show right now? You know what I mean? Like,
those aren't fake numbers. Those are like,
I know they're not fake, but I feel like
I mean, I know of people in Montreal who have in the last 2 years pulled that to go do this festival, to go do that American show. This is why it's not it's why I pulled that number. It's hard,
all right,
but it's not like a target in my mind, because I know at least 3 or 4 people who can get that.
Right, but those guys are the ones that are they the ones that are complaining about Spotify, or are they the ones that are actually out there hustling this shit?
Well, once you get real money, you don't complain about the dumb shit, in my opinion. You just get perspective, and like, and I'm not saying a lot of people do this. I'm saying, and I'm not even saying it happens a lot. I'm saying that if you can get it one time, you start having a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, how do I get that? Like, or even $1,000 a show. That's probably a lot more realistic if you really put your cards right and you don't stay in your city. You definitely have to travel. You definitely have to negotiate. You have to provide value. It's not like you're just doing it. But like, to me, that sounds like a much better use of time.
Yeah.
It's like, anyway.
$1,000 a show is not bad, man. Like, you could live off that easily if you could line up enough shows. You know what I mean? Like,
and again, I'm not saying it's simple or that I have the answers, because believe you me, I would be doing that if I had that in order and lined up. But I just, now that I know it's possible, it's like goals, you know? Like, then you have to work backwards and figure out, like, okay, what's there? And you know what? Spotify is going to help you achieve that goal.
Yeah.
That's how I see the situation. Because, then you get a little QR code, which I haven't done yet, put on the back of your fucking phone, and motherfuckers be like, yo, check my music. Boop, boop, boop. Yo, open the Spotify, open the link tree so they can choose their preferred platform. You know, like, that's way easier than any of the old shit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get it. Let's go back to your story though, because as much as I love this shit, I still want to know more about your whole thing, because that's like the main goal of this. Although your mind's fun, this is a good chat. So you're basically in the high school era, and somewhere later on, you start to feel like, okay, I could do this because I found ciphers.
Yeah.
And then how does that end up progressing for you?
So at that point, it's basically just, me and buddies ciphering after school kind of thing at buddies' houses, whatever, like the whole slamming on the table, kind of all that, right? And then at some point, my cousin, who's a little younger than me, gets into musical engineering, and he takes a course on that. And while he's doing that, we start just messing around and making music. I remember the first stuff we did was, even before he was using Pro Tools, was on this program called Hip Hop EJ. It was literally just a program you went on.
I fucking remember that shit.
Yeah. Had all these samples and stuff, and you could mix your own little samples. It had a pretty decent amount of utility for like a $60 piece of software. So we did a bunch of stuff on that, even recorded on it. It was so funny too, because like you would have your beat track and then you record your vocal track on it. But when you listen, it's never lined up perfectly. And then if you switch your vocal track, like the smallest possible amount that you're allowed to switch it by this program, it lined up almost perfectly. So I don't know, it was pretty fun. And then so once he started doing that, he started taking a course and learning actual musical engineering. He started using Pro Tools and big boy programs and stuff. And then we were just like, you know what, let's fucking start making music. So we did. We made a bunch of songs, ended up getting a bunch of shows. Not a bunch. I mean, we probably did 6 or 7 shows total, and then just kind of faded away.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Like that. So that's like in the post high school days, you can say, like early adulting.
Yeah. So now we're in the early 2000s to mid 2000s now. So I'm a few years out of high school. Working regularly.
Are you going as Uncle Dre back then?
No. Fuck. At one point I was just Dre. Then I was the Dralian, like Papa Dreas. It depended almost on the song. Like there wasn't really a set thing, and you know what I mean? Like it was kind of weird. I didn't really have like a name. Even now, like the Uncle Dre thing, it just kind of sticks because nephews called me that. You know what I mean? Like it was.
I like it.
Not really. Yeah, I don't mind it. It's just it wasn't ever super conscious. You know what I mean? To like come up with a rapper name. I was more concerned actually at the time with my cousin. We were trying to come up with group names. You know what I mean? So I remember one of them was like Sloths or Drones, or we ended up settling on Irate Primates, which whatever was kind of fun. At one point we were the DCC, and it was sort of play on the BCC, which is the boot camp click. We ended up being the double click, which was like a whole computer joke. You know what I mean? Just whatever, silly stuff like that.
No.
But yeah, so sorry, go ahead.
No, it's cool. Like I really appreciate that. And the name thing is, I don't know. I mean, my rapper name's not that creative.
It's your name, right?
Yeah. I was like, Obi Trice, real name, no gimmicks.
Yeah. And now everyone's doing it. You got J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, all these guys just using their names, man.
I'm 100% sure a lot of us heard that and thought about those words, because that song was fucking everywhere. And Kendrick and I are the exact same age. He's older than me by about like 6 months. So I know for a fact he'd be in the same age group and without me fucking slapped.
Yeah.
Like,
you know what? I just remembered, as far as rapper names, my first rapper name that I wanted, I'm talking grades 7 and 8 now, was Chaos. Like K-O-S.
Like the fucking guy?
I had it written on my backpack at the time. Like that was going to be my rapper name. And then however many months later or whatever, Much Music video fucking by Chaos. I was like, God damn it.
That's wild.
So obviously I couldn't rock that anymore.
Backpack is like got this Chaos thing on it, and
yeah, now I'm looking like a super fan, and damn.
you just like, yo, I'm ahead of the curb, yo.
Yeah, pretty much.
See, so you basically do the rapper thing for a minute with your mans, and you guys run that, and then it
Yeah.
kind of fizzles out. What makes it fizzle out?
Probably just real life stuff. Um, jobs taking priority, girlfriends taking priority, family. Like for me, it was family and job stuff. For him, it was girlfriend stuff, and we just couldn't mix times quite as much. The last show that we did was a pretty good one, and after it, I almost felt sated, if that makes any sense. Like I wasn't as hungry for it anymore, which is kind of weird because it went really well. Like for the most part, people were asking for an encore and stuff. Like the guy that went on after us. This is actually a funny story. I was hoping that I would remember to tell. It's our last concert we did. And I remember booking it with the booking agent. He said he was going to give me 40 minutes. So me and my cousin go, and my buddy that was on some of our songs and kind of hype man for me comes with us, and we're doing our songs, and the crowd's loving it. Like people are getting into it. Like we were bumping. And 15 minutes in, the buddy who's going to go on last and is also sort of putting on the show with the booking agent comes up and starts telling us that we got to shut her down. Like we're past our time and this and that. So I'm like, yo, buddy gave us 40 minutes. We had this whole set, like with songs and skits and everything involved, right? Yo, blah, 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 blah. And so my hype man guy goes to the crowd. He's like, y'all want us to keep playing? And they all went, whoa. And so dude had no choice but to let us do a couple more songs, right? I find out later, and I didn't even realize it at the time, but this is the guy that's going on after us. And I'm like, oh, I understand now why you didn't want to fucking let us keep going, because you didn't want to follow us, because you're shit. Sorry, I'm a little bitter about that.
That's why.
But yeah, so that was like our last show, and the reactions were great. The guy that was on after us, his DJ, when we were done our set, was asking us if we had a CD, and we didn't have anything prepared. He's like, yo, do you guys got anything I could buy, blah, blah, blah. And again, like the MC guy didn't come up and say that. His DJ did, right? So yeah, it was a great show, man. Yeah, this part is kind of, I don't know if it's 100% because it's my hype man told me it, and I didn't see this in particular. But when he said to the crowd, "Y'all want us to keep going?" everyone said yes, and there was one voice that you could hear going, "No!" And I didn't know who it was, but it was or who she was. It was a girl voice. She was outweighed by the crowd, so it didn't really occur to me. But my buddy went to the washroom after, and he said outside the washroom, he saw the girl that said no and asked her why, and it turned out to be the MC that wanted us off's mom.
Oh my gosh,
like,
that is the most
don't,
hilarious.
It seems too crazy to be true, but I don't know why he would make it up like that. So like, again, like I can't verify that one 100%, but it surely adds to the story. It's pretty
You know
funny.
what though? But as you're telling me this story, I can see how it would, in a sense, satiate you, because you get unlocked the other side of it right there. You
Yeah.
just see it. That side of it is a real part. Like, I would not be remembering it with fondness if Mans tried to cut my set short, especially if you tell me you had skits and shit lined up. Like, that shit would be like weird. I would have less faith in.
Yeah, I was definitely not happy at that point.
So like, I get it a little bit. Yeah, tell us
The
about
way,
your set though. Like, you
the
have
way the
skits and
crowd,
shit.
well, like the way the crowd reacted when Buddy asked if they wanted us to keep going, vindicated me. So I didn't feel as mad at Buddy trying to cut me off, because I was like, I know why you're doing it, you pussy, and the crowd is not agreeing with you, so I don't really care how you feel about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I wasn't as mad after about that. I was kind of like, it felt almost like a victory to a fight that I didn't even start. Do you know what I mean? It was weird. Which actually, that's another thing reminds me. There was a literal fight that broke out after our set. There was a fight that broke out right in front of the stage that actually had to like be pushed while fighting out the side door and be dealt with outside. That was a whole other thing though. But yeah, about my set, like we had probably 25 to 30 minutes worth of actual songs. But my cousin is very, he's very creative. He's very weird. He when we started, didn't even really like hip hop. Like there was maybe 2 rappers that he liked, but the music, and that's what made his beats so different and so enjoyable to me, is because his beats were coming from like an industrial metal techno sort of influence and space. And I was mixing that with my rap. And as a fan of LP, obviously that appealed to me a lot, especially back then. So he would put these little, it would be like his little techno or just weird freak out like background beats in between songs. And he'd have like, he just sample, like in one he had the little, if you know the movie Taxi, or Taxi Driver, Taxi, right, with Robert De Niro. There's the one scene where the drug dealer's just like listing off drugs. He'd put that in over the weird beat and just like fuck with the vocals of it and shit like that. So yeah, there'd be a bunch of that kind of stuff. There'd be like we'd have stuff that wasn't really songs that say we were just in development, where you just put on the beat for a little while and I'd rap whatever verse I had at that time, right? So, but yeah, like I said, we had about 25 minutes of actual songs at the time, but Buddy was offering us 40 minutes and I wasn't going to say no. So we just managed to fill it up, right?
That's dope.
Mm-hmm.
Was it all like choreographed? Did you all practice?
No, not really. Like it wasn't like there definitely wasn't any dance moves or anything like that. Like there was maybe choreographing as far as just more like scripting, right? Like, okay, when I put this on, you'll say this stuff and you'll, throw to Jack. That's my buddy, Jack. He could do a little bit of crowd hyping, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, like not like dance choreograph, but maybe a little bit of scripting sort of. But even then, it was pretty loose. I'm not a super awesome live performer, to be honest. It's not my favorite. It's my least favorite part of the whole thing. And I wouldn't say that I ever got very good at it.
It's like the best part to me. I hate the studio. Okay, yeah? Like, I don't hate the studio, but I only like the studio when I'm good. I don't like the studio when I'm bad. And I'm bad more often than I want to admit in the studio, which is why I like recording at home. Because, some days I'm just not feeling it. I'll spend an hour, 2 hours, fucking scrap everything. Whereas live, you can fuck up. Yeah, I can work with the flawed nature of live in a way that the perfection of studio bothers me a little bit. Obviously, you get used to it. You don't go this long without fucking learning how to do it better. That takes a lot, though. But like the live part, I can drop 4 bars, pull it back in, look like an idiot for 4 bars, and know that I'll still have them by the end of the set, and it's okay. It'll be a shit video. I don't publish that part, but like. Yeah. In that moment, people are really forgiving, is what I learned. As long as you can bring it back with the same swagger and confidence like it never happened. And that shit I was always cool with.
Man, just to have that, to be able to do that and not just shut down. Like, that's a skill that or not that it can't be developed, but like, I think there's a naturalness to that. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be a confidence ahead of it, I think. I always found it difficult.
I don't know if it's easy, but I practice a lot beforehand. Like, to me, it was always like, I don't actually think I'm good, so I have to practice.
Right.
Like, I don't know, rappers tell me I'm supposed to believe in the best. I'm like, nah, bro, I'm not. I'm just interesting. And I'll go with that, like, but it's like, I know I practice way more than a lot of my peers do. And I have to try harder than a lot of my peers do. And I'm down to do it.
And that will show up in the live show.
Yes, way more than it does in other environments because I don't have a choice. Like, I have to practice my set every time before I perform it, like 3-4 times.
I have video of my first actual live show. So like we did a show at a YMCA, like punk rock sort of show it was just like almost kids compared to how old we were. But I knew a guy who ran the YMCA shows and I wanted to do it live in front of people before I did one that I cared about, if that makes sense. Like, no offense to the YMCA punk rock show, but if they hate me, I'm like, you know what I mean? It doesn't hurt as bad as if some hip hop heads are like, yo, this is whack. But my first actual hip hop show, I have video of it and I hate watching it. Like, I hate watching myself I look so awkward. I'm doing this the whole time I'm rapping. I'm like going back and forth like this, and I didn't even realize it. I assume it's just nervousness, and like it wasn't even that it was bad. Like I didn't fuck up any of the rhymes or anything. It's just like looking at myself be so awkward and new to it.
Yeah, I relate heavy. I'm not a fan of a lot of my video efforts, like on camera presence. I feel like I'm alright with it now, cause years. But yo, I can't watch my 2017 shit. Like I just can't watch those videos. They make me feel super weird to like look at, and the way I talk, and it's a bad reminder.
Yeah, I know what you mean, man. It's hard. I think a lot of people say that, right? It's hard to listen to you or watch your old stuff, and especially if you feel that you've improved, especially then you're just like, oh man, what was I on back then? But the live thing never appealed to me that much. It would actually mess with every time we had a show, and maybe this is part of why I didn't pursue it so much after that one show. Like every time we had a show, my stomach would be messed up for like 2 days.
Yo, say a word.
And I couldn't, like, to get up on stage, I'd have to have at least 2 drinks. And that was dangerous because if I had 4, now I'm going to be probably stumbling, you know what I mean? And my lips will be a little flappily than I want them, right? So it's like I had to maintain this balance, and like the whole day of the show, I'd just be uptight and even up to it and up on the thing. And like the feeling after is almost worth it because it would just feel like such a relief. And especially when, you know, the crowd appreciated it, it's like, I don't know that I've ever felt anything quite like that. You know what I mean? Like it washes over you. Woo! You almost feel like you're floating, right? Like, but yeah, I always hated the part before the whole live performance thing.
The part before is trash. It never got better. Well, I mean, it got better in the sense like now I find it like it's kind of boring. Like I don't know how to like you're waiting. It's just an exercise of waiting. So you're forced to encounter the task that you're like dealing with in the next hour, and it's like waiting for an exam every time. And you get good at it, I suppose, of managing it, but like it's really not fun for me.
I get good at overthinking it.
I like performing as early as possible on a set, so like I can just be done and then chill the rest of the night and just
enjoy the rest of the night.
Because like everybody before me, I'm not paying attention. I try, but I'm not. I'm like too busy thinking about bars in my head. Okay, I know where I'm stumbling. I can't. So it's like,
if I start listening to your stuff, I'm gonna forget my own. Right, my head is full with mine right now. Like,
and you're like,
I never really. And again, I only did like 5 or 6 shows, so maybe a bunch more, and it would have got easier. But it just seemed like that part of it for me never really got better. I would be overthinking it the whole time. You know what I mean? I'd be obviously like thinking in the directions. Oh, what if I mess this part up? Or like, oh, I said the wrong word when I was practicing this song earlier today. What if I blah blah blah? You know, stuff like that.
So I guess what happens after that? Like you stop performing, y'all kind of go your separate ways, hip hop wise. How does it like progress for you? Because at some point shout out MX South Africa for resubscribing. Subscribing's the money one on Twitch. That's cool. Shout out you. The dude's MX South Africa. This guy, if you're ever on Twitch, check out his stream. He's in South Africa. Bust the mad freestyles of goodness. Really talented artist. I fucks with him heavy.
Bigged me up. He bigged my last Bridge the Gap verse up a little bit on either this or Meth's Twitch. I forget.
That's dope.
But I remember the name, and he was saying some positive stuff. I appreciate you, bud.
He's amazing. He's one of the coolest people I met in this whole Twitchiverse, which is surprisingly like y'all would like Twitch more than you think you would. It's not what y'all think. Music Twitch.
I don't have no hate for Twitch, man.
I don't know if you do or not.
I don't know about it really, but
some people have hate for Twitch, so it was more to the general world of people who have hate for Twitch and are addicted to Facebook Lives. And I'm like, no, come to the Twitch side.
To me, Twitch, just based on what you just said, I prefer Twitch because it was more focused on video games, right? Like Facebook's gossip, at least Twitch is like something I can sort of relate to from
Twitch is focused on focused. That's a way to put it. Like I don't know how, because Facebook's like whatever. I find I don't like Facebook as much anymore because it's gotten like really weird. I don't know how else to put it. Like even the algorithm doesn't give a shit about me like it used to currently. Like whatever I do isn't hitting in terms of my long
You
ass
gotta
thoughtful shit.
tell people to get vaccinated. You'll be all over it.
Yeah, that's boring as shit. But what's cool about like Twitch is like yo, everybody does a stream, and on your stream, you're executive producing your independent show because it's live. So everybody just does their thing in their little environments, and you just start like finding people that have vibes you fuck with, and there's virtually no algorithm. In fact, it's fucking painful to grow on Twitch because of there's no algorithm, and you have to do all the work, and you have to go actually talk to people and make friends and engage in communities. And I'm like having to, yo, I fucking swear, the internet, the internet is forcing me to do, Twitch specifically, to go do a bunch of shit people told me the internet would never make me do. And I'm having like this, like, oh, fuck me. I have to go like wake up and say good morning to people if I want to do my job right now and shit like that, right? Like that's the future of my life, to foster community growth. And that's all Twitch, man. And that like wouldn't have put the perspective on how to play the internet smarter. And it isn't gaming Twitch. Gaming Twitch is gaming Twitch. You either like it or you don't. I just know about music Twitch and podcast Twitch and all these other Twitches, which is like, imagine YouTube without trolls and haters. That's Twitch. In my experience, I'm not big though. I'm sure big people deal with shit I don't deal with.
Of course.
But as a small scale person, nobody's telling me to fuck off, and that's lovely.
Careful what you wish for. Yeah, I guess like my knowledge of Twitch was just based on that there was a whole bunch of stuff. Maybe because of my kids, like I'd see, or hear about the gaming side of it, and I didn't really know that there was much more to it until this stuff, like you and Lemef and Willie and.
Yeah, shout out Willie. Willie's one of the guys who took the plunge into Twitch with us, and we got big love for that. Because it's a community thing. The more people that we know on Twitch doing similarly things, the bigger we all collectively get, because there's no such thing as a Twitch streamer that's successful without a fat load of fucking Twitch streamers around them.
Right.
It's super social in a way that's positive, because you have to work nice with others. It was
wild. Said the bad word. Super social. I'm out.
I hear you, but in a way that's not shitty. Controlled social. Like, you don't actually have to go to places with people you don't like.
Right. But you're saying good morning to people.
Yeah, but people you'll like. It stimulates you. Encourage your mind type shit. Whatever you're into is out there.
Oh, for sure.
And that's what's cool about it. But at what point do you come back to music then? Because I know you're back in music at this point.
So I work... I end up working at this place called Isotope Music. It was we sold music wholesale, distribution, that kind of thing. CDs, records, DVDs, all sorts of stuff. And I meet Eulogy. And we just kind of befriended each other there. Pretty much started by a similar taste in music. I remember one day, we were allowed to play music there in the warehouse part. And I was the only one that ever threw on hip hop, and pretty much, right? Like there was one or two other people that listened to hip hop. They didn't throw stuff on very much. So really it was just me. And then he's working there for a little while. And one day I hear Run the Jewels. And I'm like, I didn't put on Run the Jewels. Where is this Run the Jewels coming from? And so I walk over to where it's coming from, and it was him. And he was listening to it. I was like, so I introduced myself, and we pretty much were like fast friends from then. And then he starts telling me how he's doing his rapping thing. And so I tell him, well, I do a little rapping, I had a little old thing I used to do. I'm sure he probably was just like, yeah, whatever. Everybody's a rapper, blah, blah, blah. But then, we ended up hanging out and just showing each other a little bit of stuff. And he sent me a beat. He's like, I'm doing this posse cut, which was the Mad Sounds beat, right? And he says, well, you write something and send it to me, and we'll see if you can get on there, blah, blah, blah. So I did. He liked it. And fucking boom, the rest is history.
That was a good
And then we've just been working on a bunch of songs together. Haven't done anything live since, but yeah.
So the plan is to keep like banging out shit with Eulogy and kind of come back into the game.
Yeah, more or less. Like I'm not sure how much I'll focus on solo stuff. So I don't know if my ambition is that strong. I enjoy writing and recording and hanging out and stuff, right? Like that's the part I like. So we're definitely doing that. Like we got a whole bunch of stuff in the works that you'll hear pretty soon. We got one song called Mothership, I want to say. I think we landed on, or E landed on, with this producer called Gray Maze that Eulogy met somehow. I don't even remember, honestly. It's a pretty dope beat, really cool song about like sort of has to do with the like negative side of the computer age and monitoring and surveillance and that kind of stuff. We got a whole bunch of stuff basically that I'm on with Eulogy on his stuff, right? So you've seen his promos probably of chuckling at what is it? Chuckling at a funeral.
Shit.
So I'm on a remix of one of the songs on that called Fame. That's pretty dope. He's working on another project that I think we're going to be putting out, or he's going to be putting out like a song at a time kind of thing. Like he's not going to wait for an album or whatever. We got a song called Sundress on that. It's probably going to be coming out pretty soon. You'll see a lot of stuff that, well, he's always putting out stuff, right? But you'll see a lot more stuff with me on it now too soon.
That's dope. I definitely appreciate what you do with it. I mean, are you down to like embrace it again?
Yeah, for sure. I do have reservations about doing the live stuff because like it's always in the back of my head that it makes me fucked up and I get nervous about it. But I did like there's parts of it I love too. You know what I mean? So
you know, with the internet, like there's a lot you can do to like work around this shit. Like for real, I'm participating. Oh fuck, I have to record this shit this weekend in a virtual show. Fuck me. Where I have to record a set for this shit probably this weekend or maybe next weekend. I don't remember the deadline. And then I'm gonna just record the shit in my room, send it off, and it's not part of this thing. Like there's new ways to flip this shit. And in fact, the social media world makes it you can be hella antisocial in your real life to be social on the internet.
It's true. It's true.
So like,
yeah,
I'm
man, who knows?
convinced IRL
if there's
shows.
A demand drummed up.
I don't think that in real life performing is going to be a requirement the way it used to be if you're willing to adapt into the newer market, like really throw yourself into it. Like, yo, look at virtual reality. It's like not where I hoped it would be by now, but it is going in the direction I thought it would be going. So it's like within like 3-4 years, yo, everybody just gonna have an affordable, bless ass wireless VR set for the whole family to engage in activities together. Like, you know, like
people as a fan, I think it's unfortunate a bit. I think we talked about this too. Like I used to love going to live shows, right? As a fan, again, it's probably one of my favorite sort of outings is going to see live music. So I don't necessarily like that so much, but I think you're probably right. I think it's definitely going in that direction. And even if sort of the live music venue thing continues or isn't wiped out, I think it'll be probably
it's not gonna get wiped out. I was a little bit abolish. Okay, I can sometimes take it to an extreme place in some of my opinions. So depending on where we're at, I might be like, fuck a live show forever. But nah, I'm more like now, like, no, live is gonna be huge, but so is VR, and so is staring at your phone, and so is. And it's just like they're all going to just be really profitable in different ways. Like, I mean, yeah, how are you ever going to stop a lot of young people from wanting to pack into a stadium? That's never going to end. Like, that's facts.
It's so like, fun. It's so fun.
But at the same time, everyone gets old and stops wanting to do that, whether they want to admit it. And then you will still want to have experiences. And so, like, that's where it's like both are dope. It's like where I think it's going to, you know who's going to suffer? Netflix. Like Netflix time's gonna take the hit. It's more like we just have to have context on how we like think about the way we consume the entertainment. Like you can both participate in virtual reality live events and fucking in real life live events. Hell, they can be the same event depending on where you're at with it. Like yo, I was thinking about like one of them, like Lollapalooza or one of the like bigger ones, Coachella or one of their shits, and you can like basically cop VR tickets, and I'm like, it's not see it or see it for $20 in VR from my home where I can smoke butts and like that. It's not shit.
No, it's better than nothing. It's not quite the experience you're gonna get at the live show, but there's a gamble there too, because the experience you get at a live show could be fucking horrible.
I'm 33. You know I mean? I don't know if I'm gonna love Coachella. I think I want to love Coachella.
I got old too. Once I was, late 20s, it was like, all right, I'm not at the concert in the front row or the mosh pit anymore. I'm way at the back or up on the balcony trying to find a seat. You know what I mean? Like, I still love it and I want to see it, but I'm definitely okay with sitting down for this show instead of trying to be up
like
front,
the crowd. But if a mosh breaks out, I'm moving to the side. I'm not getting kicked in the fucking face for fun.
I used to love the mosh pit, man. Especially like I was a little bigger as a late teen. You know what I mean?
But you remember bragging about how you got hit, like shit like that. Like, bro, I got kicked in the head. You're like,
look how fat my lip is, yo.
Man, and now it's like, nah. So it's like I'm just being realistic to my age group because I tried to get people to go to live shows in my age group, dude. I'm just being real on a pure, like, I kind of want to make some cash on this shit. Like, people my age want VR. They just don't know it yet.
No, if you want to focus on the live show, you might have to go younger. If you want to focus on your age group, you might have to intensify the VR. I remember, or the younger and the mosh pit thing. I remember a punk rock show I went to here when I was probably 26 years old, but it was like, a younger buddy of mine was going, so we went with him. And I ended up in the front row somehow. It was a pretty local show. It wasn't very big. And the bassist, who was this big dude, actually the band was from Montreal. I don't remember the name. I'm sorry. But the bassist, as they're, doing their thing, he actually like kicked me. Like he threw a forward kick into my stomach. And I remember like being shocked, and I caught his foot, but like down here. And as he pulled back, his shoe came off, and I'm holding his fucking boot, and I'm like, am I in a fight? You know what I mean? Because it happened very fast. I don't know why the guy kicked me, so I'm like, I'm about to like, I don't know what to do, right? But he backs up, and I notice the people around me, like the kids enjoying the concert, are almost looking at me like, I wish I got kicked. Like they're like, oh. And it was at that point I was like, I'm too young for this section of the live show.
You're too old.
I have no business here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's because it's like, I'm not angry like that no more, too. Mm-hmm. Like, I would much rather go to a club where there's some high energy booty shaking music. Like, I know it sounds like
in here anymore.
And it's like, kind of like even my music is gonna get more pop oriented because like I want to have fun in life for a little bit, and then I'll be a miserable old man, I promise, and you'll get all of that shit in my 50s. It's gonna come back,
By that time, hip hop will be old enough to accept miserable old man rappers.
And I'm ready for that when I'm a miserable old man.
Ready already.
I want to like maybe hit my 40s with some smiles though. Because you see the people who are happy in their 40s and they are literally living their best fucking life. Like they are living way better than they did in their 20s 100% of the time when they're happy in their 40s. It's when
Who's happy in their 40s? You got to introduce me to them.
I could. I have names. I'm like, because I find I find people like I work for my direct boss. This guy's like up happiness land. Like he has back pain and is happy. Okay, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, but and again, I'm out of curiosity, not out of disrespect towards anybody, but is that a front for the workplace, or is he like
he's happily married? He loves his kids. He has a good fucking healthy surrounding of ecosystem of friends. They do whiskey fucking advent calendars as a group. Like it's almost like, bro, I didn't know that existed.
And now, drunk. What are you talking about?
However you want to spin it. However you want to spin it. A lot of people, but I look at the camaraderie and the fact that like these is a bunch of dudes in their 40s that don't hate each other.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, that means it's possible. And there are examples of that. And I find a lot of people who, in a sense, basically just focused on like community shits and like Like this guy is not like motivated by cash, but he's on a second house now. And it's weird
Right.
how shit can play out like that because he just keeps doing a great job at work, so he gets promoted. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, say word. He worked really hard and he got,
It's possible. It's possible in the right environment. I've seen environments too where motherfucker do a great job at work. I'm talking about me, but others as well. And it doesn't pay off, and it's not. You know what I mean? Like, it's possible. And I know you'll say, you got a shitty attitude,
No,
and I have at times.
I'm not gonna say that because
well, no, but I say
I don't think it's a shitty attitude.
Work, I have.
I think it's about the environment. Sometimes we just can't 100%. Excel based on who we are. Like, it dawned on me that I might not excel to the highest ends of conventional old school bureaucracy given the person I am, and I kind of want to play on the fringe if I really want to succeed in life, just because it's not the jobs that change, it's that, like, if I'm going to work with a bunch of people that ain't living a life like mine, I don't really fit into the culture.
Yeah.
And that's not their fault.
No.
I might work there, but it's not their fault that we don't like live the same. And it's more, that's how I see what you described.
Mm-hmm. In some cases, yeah.
I know what you're describing. I'm
more recalling a sinister sort of thing, but yeah, there's definitely all sorts of stories, right?
There's definitely lots of sinister shit out there, and I'm not downplaying that either.
Whether hard work in some places doesn't get paid off, I feel like there's not going to be very much payoff if hard work doesn't go into it in the first place. You know what I mean? So like, if you're working hard, if you're putting hard work into it and it's not paying off in whatever environment, then that hard work still can pay off, but in a better environment, right? Like, it's not a reason to not put in hard work.
Agreed.
Kind of thing, right? Like, just because that guy worked hard and like got screwed, that doesn't mean I shouldn't work hard. Do you know, like?
Yeah, I'm with you entirely. But I also look at it like everything I do now is just investments for my future, and I'm not even doing what I'm going to be doing when that time comes, but I'm developing the habits that are required to not lose it when I get it.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I see it. But, I'm not going to lie. Like, I've seen some shit at work where, I understand what you're talking about across, like, all the jobs. I worked at a Couche-Tard one time. Let me tell you, I didn't work there. I left. I left when I shouldn't have. It was like one of those.
Right.
And like, and it was like, so I hear you. But like, Couche-Tard, for the record, is a bodega style convenience store.
No, I know Couche-Tard. I grew up in Montreal. I remember the
non-Montrealers
the Bonnie and
I'm just saying, MX is in South Africa, so, just for like the.
Fair enough,
for the people who may not live in our little localized thing.
I keep forgetting that we're talking to other people too.
It's wild. There's still like 7-8 people have been there the whole fucking time for reals. Like, it's actually like.
Appreciate you guys.
It's like good numbers for me lately. So.
Right. Yeah. Hey, good stuff.
It's because you're not boring. That's the facts of it. If you were boring, people would have dipped.
You're catering to stuff I like to talk about, so it's easy, right?
I let whoever I talk to guide the conversation so it stays natural and litty.
That makes sense.
I don't know enough about anybody. Try Googling a guy whose Facebook page doesn't have the same Instagram name.
Yeah.
Neither of which are Uncle Dre.
Again, none of this was planned out very well.
That's fair enough, though.
Actually, funny enough, this is my my second Facebook page. When like I said earlier, I was married when I was younger. When I split up with my my ex, I just kind of abandoned that Facebook page because I didn't want to deal with whatever that came with, as far as like talking to people being, blah, blah. I don't know. I didn't really even know, and I didn't want to deal with it. So I just canceled that Facebook page. And I was pretty content not being on Facebook for a while. But then I was playing World of Warcraft. I don't know how familiar you and your fans might be, but
I spent 7 weeks of my fucking life. 7 weeks, and then I went back to school. I went back to school and realized I couldn't maintain it. It was between semesters in CEGEP. It was 7 weeks off. All I did every day, odd hours of the day, work.
I know
went back to school. Decided I like life more.
Yeah, you have to. But yeah, so I was playing Warcraft for a while, and this buddy I was playing with, was trying to start this guild for this rating guild. And he was like, I'm going to basically be posting strats and schedules and everything on Facebook. So you're going to have to sign up. And that's why that, you know, my Facebook that I'm on now, it's not a real name, right? And it's not my picture, like, because I wasn't actually at the time interested in being on Facebook. I was literally just like, okay, fine, I'll make this fucking profile so I can follow your shit. But then it grew, you know, people are, hey, what's your Facebook? And it's like, well, I like you as a person, so I will, you know what I mean? It just ended up being a whole other Facebook. So,
yep, I think that's why a lot of us are on Facebook. Although I'm having a strange relationship with it. I'm trying to, in my head, plan my breakup with Facebook so that, like, I have enough presence on every other platform that I can actually go away.
Right.
From it. Like,
it's a big platform, man. It's hard. It's a hard one to get away from.
I'm down with Messenger and shit, but, like, yo, like, on every, like, front, right? Outside of, like, immediate social network shit where, let's be real, we're all on Instagram already. We already all went there for the most part. Anybody that didn't go to Instagram, I'm like, well, I'm a little confused by the level of success you're chasing in life if you're an artist. And outside of artists, who the fuck am I really, like, I'm not gonna, it's not to say friends, but everybody I know now is in the art world or related to it in some way. It's my whole fucking network. So it's like, yeah, we're all on other platforms. It's like, so if I can find a way to, like, get my focus into this other shit, like, I could just leave the Facebook behind. Like, you know what got me there is TikTok. I'm never unhappy on TikTok. I love it. It's always good shit.
That might be hypnotizing, man. That sounds dangerous. I'm not on there yet, but I see my son on there just, like, zoned into it, like, nothing I've ever seen him focus on.
But I'm
before.
doing it on Facebook. Only it's miserable. And, like you said, like, look, this whole, like, everybody I know is an artist, which has this disproportionate fucking focus on vaccination passports because it fucking affects all of our careers. So everybody obsessed with it one side or another, and I'm on the, well, I was planning on going to New York either way, so fuck that shit. And like, I'm a pretty positive citizen, go with the crowd type on this shit, so it was whatever for me. I just didn't even think twice until all my artist friends were, like, freaking out about it, and I'm like, fair enough. If I was not vaccinated now, I would feel super different about everything. But it's like, I don't know that it's helping me in any way, or, like, I have to, like, post in, like, particular ways or whatever, and I feel like it's gotten weird. It's not really what it used to be because I can't be myself anymore. So it's like, okay, well, if it's all fake now, it's not fun to message.
It's a weird thing to have to, like, think about yourself and censor and sort of structure around is this, like, culture right now with all the vaccination stuff. Like, if you mention it, it has to almost be mentioned in a certain way. If you don't mention it, you're almost looked at like, how come you haven't spoken up about this? You know what I mean? And it's like, it's weird to
super okay not speaking
watch some of the YouTube channels or whatever that I've used to watch. And now they'll just be talking freely like they always have. And that'll happen to come up, obviously, because it's so ingrained in the culture right now. And they almost have to, like, and I'm not saying anything as a scientist in any which way, yes or no.
You know why, though? It's because, like, yo, even at this point in my life, there's at least the 1-2 people that are like, you're influential to me. And I'm like, oh, say word. So, and then I know that I've gotten myself in a little bit of trouble running my mouth this year. So there's the other side of it. People do pay attention, and you don't necessarily want to influence people in any way on a subject like this, even if you have an opinion. So it's like, yo, the truth is, like, yo, maybe somebody thinks I'm always spitting fucking fire or whatever, and sometimes my hot takes is trash, and everybody knows it. Sometimes I say some dumbass shit. Sometimes I'm feeling away, and I don't even agree with myself in an hour and a half. So maybe it's like you gotta, like, I do get wishy-washy on certain subjects like that, because it's like, yo, what the fuck do I really know? But, like, I don't know. I know enough to know how little any of us know, and that this is a dumb topic for most of us to engage in, because, trust, y'all don't know how little we all know with the little bit of research everybody did.
And I think that's the scariest part to most people, man. I think the most people that are not, let's say, into it right now, I think that's the scariest part, is that it's just like, we don't fucking know anything, man. And, like, you hear good stuff, and then you hear bad stuff, and you hear great stuff, and you hear horrible stuff, and sometimes it's the same person telling you two different things on a different day, and like
It's mad legitimate.
That's sort of the scary part, and I think that extends to any topic, though, right? Like, there's like you're a person, you're allowed to think one thing, and then like either get more information or just think about even what you have from a different perspective or for a little longer and change your opinion. You should be allowed to do that. But like, it seems, I don't know if played out is the right word, but it's like, it comes up so much where, you know what I mean? People have to change what they're saying, or, you know,
well,
like
I think there's like, because simultaneously there's
right?
Facebook jail.
Yeah.
So here's where I think the issue came in. A lot of people, like Facebook, so like my day job, I have to preface this, like, is community management. Like, ultimately, I'm one of the people that has to make a decision on a post if it comes to it. Are we allowing this or not? And then I have to read our rules. And we actually changed a rule because the guy was doing something, but it didn't violate our rules. So we had to change the rules to make sure we could deal with this guy because he was really violating and they wrote bad rules. So, like,
Okay.
you know, like, so I look at it like that, and I've read all the guideline updates to Facebook. And then, like, you read, like, articles from the customer service reps at Facebook who have nervous breakdowns for all the awful shit they deal with. You see all the really awful shit that's there, and then you get to this middle ground of, like, regular people who don't see any of that shit. And then do a lot of shit that looks exactly like the really bad shit, but they're just joking. Or it's, like, there's, like, these exceptions people add in their own head. But, like, if you take all context out and verbatim read it like a fucking court transcript, it's often linguistically kind of violating the terms and conditions. But to explain to people that they are, in fact, attacking people or breaking some rule is we're talking about, like, in the rules of, like, a Facebook guideline perspective, right? That's Facebook jail.
So
and when you get to vaccination chats, everybody jumps to insults so fucking quick. And I read thousands of comments where it's like, I mean, y'all could just not insult each other a lot and make gross generalizations. Gross meaning like big, overstanding. Yeah. And those two tweaks to everybody's argument, just cut out the "you're just what it's not, that sentence is going to get you in trouble. And then cut out that and the alls, and then that would tone it down. But then so you have this paranoia of Facebook jail that has nothing to do with the other topic, and these two paranoias put together have created this wild fucking dance around the issue kind of vibe that you almost feel you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I think the Facebook jail thing goes a little too far. Like I was in for one a little while ago that's very silly, that the context should sort of have gotten me off on it. There was a post. It was like a health post about pork being so much worse for you than beef. And then somebody in the comments with a name, like, it was like I Am Human. That was the name, something like that, like suspicious, you know, like I am human or whatever, right? Said something about, no, this is all fake. You should definitely eat pork more, blah, blah, blah. And so I replied to that as a joke because I thought that was joking with the I Am Human thing. This is clear. You're clearly a cow, blah, 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 about you just don't want us eating your kind. So I wasn't calling anybody fat. I wasn't saying anything like that, right? But I got put in Facebook jail for that, which I assume it was for the part where I said you're a cow.
Yeah.
They got me for bullying. But like, I even hit the, like, you know, like, please check this over.
So you got to keep in mind, you got call center agents working like probably $15 an hour somewhere, answering case after fucking case, and it's that person's judgment. So they just, these people fuck up. Like, I have call center agents, I do quality scores and shit. Like, agents are unfortunately humans, and humans are worse than AI for this shit.
I think the whole Facebook jail thing is a little like, because I get that there's a lot of fucking bullying on there that goes on, and there's a lot of name calling and shit that people should get tossed off. But I think sometimes when somebody's talking about context and something like that, it's, for me now, having gone through it, it's much easier to be like, okay, well, let's see the exact wording. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I understand, like they literally took the sentence like you are a cow or you are clearly a cow, and they were like, boom, bullying. And it's like, but if you read the rest of that same message, like I'm definitely not bullying anyone, right? Like it wasn't even an angry like I was trying to make a joke, like or to go along with a joke that I already thought the person was making.
So the other side of it is, what if that person was super sincere, whatever, vegan, or maybe, because that's the other side of it, is people be a little bit like, not everybody has thick skin. And you got to understand, I deal with some wanky whiner shit. Like, unfortunately, I don't want to say names or whatever, both in my day job, both in, imagine moderating a contest for 9 months, 10 months. Just the DMs you might get along the way from people that have grievances. And believe it or not, the things people think people are mad about are not the things people are mad about. But the amount of like whiner shit I've encountered in my life dealing with customer service and shit, like, a lot of these rules make sense if you have the broader context of how mean everyone else is and that gray zone shit. It's like,
yeah, but now we're punishing the few for the many for the sins of the few, right? Like, and I get why that has to happen. Obviously, like you can't have.
I guarantee if you run the stats, most people aren't in Facebook jail. I don't think most people caught a charge yet. I think the stats are it's a minority of people getting punished versus the grand number of things. Like if you were to really look at the data. Because I know more people that don't go to Facebook jail than that do, and all the ones I know are kind of one type of group of. And I'm connected to this group of people, a lot of artists, a lot of more entertainer creator types. People will push boundaries. People who might be more inclined to jokes. It's often it's related to humor and misinterpretations of humor. So
and
it's
that's the part, right? It's the misinterpretation, Like I've been to Facebook jail another time for bullying, and it's like I was saying shit I shouldn't have said. You know what I mean? Like I 100% understand and accept why they booted me off. Like my message was clearly written in a mean way, and I shouldn't have, right? But and then I've seen people, I've said things or seen other people say things that are like way worse than "you're a cow," and nothing happened.
So my theory is the first time you go to Facebook jail is somebody flags you, or enough people flag you. It's probably not one. It's like probably like 8 to 10 people.
The first time I went, it didn't even, like I tried to post and it was like, no, fuck you. Like it didn't even post the message.
Fair enough. They might have good enough AI.
It was pretty rude.
So once you get flagged though, I feel like what they do is they put a marker on your account.
Right.
And now the AI is turned up.
Yeah.
So you are maybe being
victim. They definitely do that. I watched a thing recently where they said they do that, and sometimes for reasons that maybe they shouldn't be, right? Like in that case, it makes sense, but in some cases they flag people that they just don't want to be heard.
And I think what's actually happening is if you look at like the Congress side of it, because yes, Facebook is currently dealing with some Congress shit. They're getting called out for being mean and fucking up teenagers. So like they kind of have to deal with this hate barrage, and because they were pushing the hate train for so long, they're learning fast. And I just think they're really shit at this. Like, to be honest, I think it's a lot of ineptitude more than malicious. I don't think that, because I work like in a tech sector.
Makes me feel a lot better about my case.
And I work I have to make sometimes like, yo, you try to explain to 3 Ukrainian ladies who don't live here distinction and nuance on some random ass American joke, and then you start to see things from Facebook's perspectives a little bit differently, because these people don't even come from this continent. They don't know what the fuck our fucking little expressions and shit mean, and people take things at very literal value. And I feel like people forget that Facebook is like a global thing, and that all our cultural norms are super localized. And the more we put ourselves out there, it's like honestly walking into another country's park and acting like you're at home is a lot of what Facebook is. Yeah. I don't think people have the right context for it.
But it's tricky because you're at the park at your home, right? And it's just like, but
that's what private groups are. So in private groups, I feel like it's a different rule and they should have like looser shit. And I think it's fair game in private groups and everyone complains. But in public timelines, nah, that's like being in somebody else's park in another hood in another part of town where you ain't necessarily comfortable, but people think because they're literally at home it's the same. But like Again, dude, I have to write documents
But
explaining this shit to
it's not
people.
someone else's part though. It's like the community part. You know what I mean? Like you're not posting on your timeline like I gotta act like I'm in this guy's hood and check in with them. You're posting on your timeline like whatever the fuck I want, but you without thinking that, okay, it's a community park though, so maybe I should
That's what I'm
be
saying.
a little more aware, right? I get what you
Yeah,
mean.
because again, like that's what
But
Facebook
like
is, regardless
it's
to
not
how we
necessarily like
interpret it.
it's not like I feel like if you're going to another park at another place, you're now invading their space. Like you're still in your space. It's just the shared space aspect of it makes it
But like
so you
when
should
you,
maybe be a little more
so like
sensitive,
let's
I
say
guess.
you're commenting on somebody else's status, right?
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of us do. That's when you're
Well, now you're on
absolutely
that part. Yeah, for sure.
I think people lose the distinction that, like, especially with this concept of free speech, where I know Facebook's an international global thing. They're
Yeah.
pandering. So here's what happens. There's 90 countries with specific legal codes that Facebook got to deal with at once. Like
Okay.
at once. So it's not really American norms that are so companies like, and I learned about this a bit because of the copyright shit that the EU was doing. And I found out that if the EU goes super hard on copyright, they may go super hard in America because developing tech to deal with everything is too hard. So they play to the lowest common denominator rule sets in order to make sure that they're not going to get sued by governments in other country, which Google that shit. People sue the fuck out of American companies.
Oh, for sure.
So it's
There's
like
money to be made.
billions of dollars are going to transfer from America to other governments just due to lawsuits like that. So like Facebook be sitting there being like, yeah, I hear you, America, with your 340. Let's say between the U.S. and Canada, it's what, 400 million people tops.
Almost,
Maybe
yeah.
450 if you add all undocumented humans. And then you go to like
They're on
other
Facebook too.
countries, but other countries, right? Be like large, right? Like large and
I mean,
populated. And then
some.
or you go to like provincial norms. Like, yo, when GDPR came in, this is the European data protection shit. So they have
Okay.
the right to request all their data deleted. My company in Montreal had to be scrambling to set up for that. Then the California protection, which is the California version, came in. Now you got to scramble and everybody got to deal with that. So you end up kind of creating lowest common denominator solutions that will take into account local fucking legal systems. And I don't know that everybody sits there and considers any of that, because like, why would
No,
you?
a lot of people definitely don't.
And why would you? Like, I get it. How many people really talk to fucking people that read policy for fun?
Yeah. It's not
I
gonna
don't even do that. I just,
it
there's
means nothing to people.
that guy is a job at work. There's a guy whose job at everybody's company that reads policy, so you end up meeting the policy guy and learning about this shit. It's a real thing.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, I bet. He probably
like,
runs into some crazy stuff.
You find out that like there's just a lot of specifications, so it's hard to like, so you end up being like, yeah, it might be like super legal and free speechy in everywhere to say a lot of things, but like, what if Canada changes its rules on hate speech or its interpretation real quick? Then you have to like rewrite an AI to instantly learn, you know, like that's not how tech works. It takes like a while to train shit and to do it right. Like we're not that good at it as a culture, as people. Like it's like I think people overestimate how good an algorithm works and shit. Like people think it's good at some shit. It's bad at most of the shit we want it to do.
Yeah.
It's just good at what it's good at, like, which is make money for big corporations. It's bad at everything else. So when you start adding the new in, it's just fuckery. And I'm not justifying Facebook. I'm just trying to add context.
Yeah.
To why people catch bands. Because people are going to catch. And you'll find that it's always older people with jokes, and it's rarely younger people with opinions.
Right.
Unless they're being sensationalist, which is its own separate conversation.
That's, yeah.
I got a question from the chat that was from my girlfriend, so she'll be mad if I forget to ask it. She wants to know, are you going to be putting out more songs about the environment?
Yeah, I mean, if the urge to write something comes to me, for sure. I don't really think about it purposefully. Even with that one, like it just kind of, I don't even remember what I was doing, but something popped up in my head and I just started started writing away about it. You know what I mean? It came pretty quick. Um, I don't know that I have any actual songs about environments, even in the newer stuff I've written. At least not on that sort of level where I'm sort of like,
Bro, that was a
I
great.
guess, conscious rapping about it, right? Sort of.
What,
But I did like that topic, and there's definitely more to be said about a lot of that stuff for sure.
I think the world needs people rapping about fuck grass.
Just all sorts of different stuff. Like everybody should rap about a whole bunch of different stuff instead of like
Like
all of
what?
us rapping about the same things. You know, like
What are some
it gets hard to
topics?
listen to you when you've heard it 17 times in a row.
So what would be some like wish list topics that you would like to see people go hard on?
For me,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I don't know. That's the whole point is for them to come up with something creative to them that's maybe a little more personal to them in some way, and then that's what would make it more interesting to me. I think it's the
Okay.
whole like if if you're all rapping about the same topics, and it's like it was very interesting when this rapper did it 3 years ago, and now it's not interesting because so many rappers have said the same thing, right? So it's not even like a knock at particular people. It's just kind of like anything with fashion, right? If you see something and it's dope, and you're like, oh man, that's hot, it's dope for a while, and then but if you see it over and over again, especially with it gets, I guess, homogenized is maybe a good word, with people doing their own little tweaks and little versions that are slightly different but the same. It just kind of it loses its flavor, right? Its value. So yeah, I mean, it'd be hard. Cows and pigs. I'm looking at the chat now. That'd be a great one for people to come up with. And you could get creative with it, like we were talking about Aesop Rock before on his. I think it's on None Shall Pass. He has a song about pigs, but it's relating to police, right? Like he's calling police pigs, but the whole way he's like maintaining the metaphor. So it's kind of
Yeah, I definitely
or
think there's a lot of
there's
ways to
like
approach it.
there's a Danger Doom song called Vats of Urine, where he's sort of making fun of everybody talking about this irrelevant stuff that doesn't matter by talking about vats of urine, because it doesn't really matter, but we can go into the topic and discuss it. And it's a pretty funny song. The beat's good and stuff, but when you listen to what he's actually rapping, you're like, man, he's just rapping about piss. Like there's not really anything to it, but when you go a little deeper, you're kind of like, I see what's happening.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that matters. I also think that like a huge thing changed. And I didn't really understand it until I reviewed albums. At first, with album reviews, you're sitting there and you're really eager. We're talking a year, maybe even 2 years. You're so down to bump everything 4 or 5 times. This is me. I'm not talking for everyone. And then all of a sudden, it's work. And all of a sudden, you started hearing a lot of shit. And all of a sudden, you're like, okay, I only need 3 listens. And then all of a sudden, you're like sometimes winging it on like a 1 listen, and don't do that if it's Eminem because the like-dislike ratio is 50% and it's not a good look. And it's like, I don't know, man. My life got busier the more I was doing better. And my ability to really sit down with albums and listen to them the way I want at this phase of my life is really hard. I can't really enjoy music to that level. So I find myself often drawn to like a lot of the repetition, the quick one-liners that have impact, because in a world where you gotta hustle every day all the time, like who is really just doing one thing anymore? Then
That,
it's like,
that makes sense. Like, as you get older, you get less time on you know recreational things, right?
so, but I also feel like the little ones are facing that challenge just today and now. Like they also gotta hustle because they're getting hired younger, and like a lot of them do hustle. So it's like, or even to maintain a social life, it's almost like to be young now, you're an influencer just to enter the game. That's wild.
Yeah,
They
I
take
feel
on
like
this whole other job.
even before the sort of like everyone being an influencer thing, you had those people, and obviously the reach wasn't as wide without the internet. But there was always the people you knew um, that were way ahead of their level, sort of age wise, in certain games. You know what I mean?
But like I was
Like
watching
my
these like my cousin's daughter. She's like 8, 9, something like that. Little, but getting bigger and whatnot. Like, they were too shy to talk to me. I'm like, fair enough. You don't know me that well. And, like, they were, like, saying shit I saw in memes and, like, acting like the games are now being influencer. Like, you know, like, it's... And that's a job, is what I'm discovering. You know?
Yeah.
So I feel like the way life is metamorphizing into this, like... Yo, everybody that's 20 is probably better at marketing than people that are 40 right now. And nobody really wants to admit that in the older sphere.
Potentially, I think maybe having been marketed in that way too so much, they might understand it if they learned about it, but maybe
No,
not
they do know about
like
it.
right off the bat, right?
Nah, bro. Everybody I talk to that's young, artist, regular person, whatever, they're busting out Instagram analytics and just recognizing shit and observing. And I'm like, no, I had to literally take online courses, no lie, to understand some of the shit you just learned because you were a curious teenager with an Instagram
Right.
analytics page.
I see your point. Yeah, definitely. I agree.
And
100%.
all the time in the world to learn about concepts like A/B testing. Bro, this young one, he's like 20. He hit me up for an interview. You know what really impressed me and made me go, I'm going to do this? He had a 1-minute Instagram post that was like a mixtape, in a sense, flavors, samples of songs, and they were versatile. And I was like, I need to know what this kid thinks about things because that's fire.
That's Prince Paul though. Prince Paul did that with Prince Among Thieves with a music video. Again, before the internet, right? He had a music video, and it was literally like it was not a whole song. It was, I want to say, even like up to like 12 little bits of songs on the album that he composed, and it was like, you know what I mean, just 4 bars here of Everlast Rap, and 4 bars here of the De La Soul part, 4 bars here of the Exhibit part. You know what I mean? So like, the concept, it makes sense. It's been around. Like, you got a good preview, right, with the music video.
But what I noticed is the
little ones. The music videos aren't as popular now.
No, music videos are more popular than ever. It's just that people
I'm saying on TV.
Oh, yeah, no. TV.
Like, that was yeah, exactly. That was the medium back then, right? Like, we're past that now.
Now it's like, yo, where's your visuals at? It's too easy to make visuals for you to not have visuals, and you're like, it's not that easy to make visuals. It's actually, to make good visuals is hard. That's where I'm struggling because I know it's not
good visuals that people haven't done, right?
No,
like,
not even haven't done. I don't care about the haven't done. I'm really down to do some trope shit, but like, you make some bad videos and you start understanding what goes into making a quality from a basic cinema point of view, right? You got a storyboard, figure out a mood, you have to find your set, your props, and we're just talking to do a stereotypical video. Now we're just talking about a stereotype video. To do something innovative, now you got to be creative, you got to location scout, blah, like all of this shit to me is so much work, and I'm like not that into it personally. So like, the more I learned about making good videos, the less I like that's why I'm like, videos aren't my favorite. But the reality is, it's too fiscally easy to not figure it out, get over yourself, and like start to create a pipeline that has low end visuals.
There's definitely that with the popularity of it and the ease of access. My point was more just like even back then when you had sort of a new effect or something like that came out and was available, that would become the new good video, right? Whereas if you didn't use that, then you weren't up in this tier yet. And then now you look back on that stuff now, and it's like that it almost all gets clumped together. Like the first person to sort of make it famous with everyone that used it after, because it's almost like all of that was so far back technologically. Now we're at this point, but it's a similar thing happening where it's like, if you're on the cusp of the technology and the effects and shit like that, your stuff looks the hottest. You know what I mean?
Or at least it's more innovative, or it shows, like, because that's what impressed me was that
everyone can do it, right?
And in one Instagram post that he sent me, he was able to communicate that he's an interesting enough artist that I could, and I'm like, that's smart, like, and it just made me realize that young people just do shit like that. And then they're like, yo, which one of these is best? 1 through 7, pick, go. And I'm like, he didn't even release these. He's just, and I'm like, yo, and then I'm finding that they pretty much, and then it's not just like the musician types. It's like I bet people would really just be doing this for regular ass pictures on some thirst for likes and shit.
But like you said, when this guy did that, it impressed you, right? That wasn't the norm of everything that you were getting
I'm gonna
approached with
say
yet.
no. I'm gonna say pretty much everybody under the age of 25 I have talked to has left me with one of those moments. So I want to say these little ones they're intuitive with it as a culture, and it's the shit that us older ones be struggling with as the world vies towards social media marketing and content marketing taking over. And that's why all the ads look the same, because we're not really good at shit, but we're the ones doing
It
the
makes sense
shit.
though, right? Like it's the same old story, right? Like the youth are gonna do the shit that we did better, and then they'll do some new shit, and half of us will shit on it, and then it'll become the main thing. And I don't know. I feel like it's progression, right?
Yeah, but not bad at all. I'm impressed with them. That's what I'm saying. They're all really good marketers in ways that we're not, and just because of the Instagram era.
Definitely made the point for sure.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
It makes
sense. It's almost, as I'm thinking about it, it's almost kind of sad that they have to know by default almost so much more about having to market themselves. And like on one hand, it's like it's good, but then it's almost like I don't know. It's like we're selling ourselves so much more.
Imagine the job market of the future.
Yeah.
Like, I know it sounds wild, but I'm pretty sure that like if I applied at places, they're gonna look at my social medias.
Nowadays, for sure.
Well, at least at a certain salary range. Okay, like I'm not gonna say every minimum wage position, but where I'm at in life, they scouting me.
In your field, imagine if you didn't have them. Like if you didn't list your social medias, it'd be like dismissed, right?
I don't know about
you
that.
You gotta have some up there.
You could get around that if your cover letter fire and you can justify it, because you could be like, listen, I don't fucking trust the government and data privacy and blah 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 blah. And trust in my field, you could probably really work that, but it would be weird if you're not on LinkedIn.
That's yeah.
LinkedIn got weird, but it's a real thing now. I don't like it, but it's like corporate fuckery like that. But no.
Yeah, I've been hearing about it. I never got on.
Either way, you might actually be okay with no social, because the risk is more, I do this, I reflect the company and the brand. Hell, I'm surprised sometimes at how like lenient they are with the shit I said. I got told by HR I'm allowed to protest and have opinions. I just am never allowed to really talk about my company.
That's a good freedom to have.
Yeah, I test it.
Some people won't let it. Some people won't allow that shit, man. Some companies would be like, "Whoa, you're out. You didn't just say that."
Yeah, they really.
Whether you're on their time or not.
We got tested from another employee on a situation. I can't provide details, but let's say it's related to the anti-vax situation, and the company sided with free speech. And I was like, "Say fucking word. They're about it. They're like, we had to like come up with a politics answer for the situation." But the company really proved to be like about it, and it was very hopeful to see that
good,
at
man.
least.
Shout out to them.
It's also Quebec. Quebec has pretty solid fucking labor laws and shit, so we probably get inspired by that a little bit. I don't know how like on the books it is, but I like to give props to Quebec when it's worth giving props to Quebec. But as far as your music goes, do you have any real ambitions to like in your mind and the desires to like really push it and bring in this like, dad energy?
It feels like it'd be nice kind of thing to me, you know what I mean? But I don't really have any energy towards what the results are, if that makes sense. Like I like the creative process. I like hanging out with people while they're in the creative process. And like, I mean, if something happens, it's weird. Like I have almost no drive to go for money, and it's obviously counterproductive because it'd be nice to have money, and like we all need money to live, obviously. But it doesn't really enter it as far as like when I'm doing this stuff. Do you know what I mean? I don't really. It's like when I'm writing, I'm thinking of a very few and specific people that I'm like, okay, they would think this was okay, or they would think this is good. You know what I mean? And it's almost never anybody that would pay me for it, if that makes sense. Like I'm more trying to impress the people I'm working with. So like when I'm doing songs with Eulogy, I'm trying to make him be like, oh man, bars or whatever, right? When I'm doing, if we did a song, I would be trying to hit the whatever the topic is that you were doing, kind of thing. It's almost like I don't. I guess I leave the rest of it up to other people. Like it's weird, right? Like if say me and Eulogy are doing a song, for example, or another song, and he's like, all right, I really want this one to be like easily digestible and mainstream and this and that, I would try and accommodate that, right? But I'm not. It'd be more like trying to please him in the task, as far as, or whoever's doing the song in the task, more than like what everybody else likes and if it would be marketable. Like I've never really liked what the mass is like, so that's been a difficult thing for me, right? I don't know if it would be.
So it's wild to me because in this era of music, you no longer have to worry about what the masses like. I genuinely do not believe I have mass market appeal, but I think I have niche underground appeal. I think I can find 1,000 people and they give me $5 a month. You know,
Right.
like, and I think it's a good goal. Yo, imagine $5K a month, just being yourself.
Dope.
You know what I mean? So it's like in that, bro, it's hard to do all that shit. I can see how you don't want to run the business, but then it's like I know Eulogy's like, he on his hustle. So it's like if Eulogy be like, yo, let's run this, and then you just got to show up and do whatever you got to do, and it just happens, you know, like that's cool because you put in faith in the dude that's going to make it happen.
It's that, but it's also a bit of not wanting the responsibility too, right? Like there's a bit of, I don't want to necessarily say laziness, but like it's a lot easier for me, and I appreciate this, Eulogy, if you're watching. For him, like he takes care of most of the concept, and I just got to come in and like punch up a couple of dope bars. And if I'm part of the recording process or the creative process of a song, like I have input and stuff, and I could be like, oh, let's do this here and this here. But like not being the boss and not having the responsibility of a project appeals to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I wouldn't mind, like, let's say tomorrow you or Eulogy or somebody was like, all right, I'm doing a rap group, I'm gonna pay this much per month, we gotta 6 months, we gotta make a 10-song album, blah blah blah. Like I could go in there and work. Do you know what I'm saying? But like to be looking at it like I can't wait to blow up, it's I don't really feel that. Do you know what I mean? Like that part of it doesn't just doesn't really draw me. And I think that's part of like just like I have sort of some antisocial tendencies. I don't like being in big crowds and stuff like that, which is weird considering I love the live shows. But like, if that makes sense, like so like the fame part of it never really appealed to me, and like the blowing up and like, you know, where you have to understand that like, okay, if you want to make some money, you're gonna have to sacrifice and at least have some of this fame. That always just kind of turned me off, and I'd just be like, well, I don't want to make money out of it that bad. But I've thought about that too, because this is a weird thing that me and a group of work friends talked about like 12 years ago. And the conclusion I came up to was like, I'm eating right now. My family eats, you know what I mean? Like we're not balling, but we get around, we have enough for a little recreation, and nobody's hungry or cold or anything like that, right? At that point in life, I'll never sell out or be a Backstreet Boy, that kind of thing, right? But if I'm hungry, say my kid doesn't have something to eat, I'm gonna be a Backstreet Boy for $30. If that, you know what I mean? Like it depends. Again,
so I respect
like
that hustle.
Right?
Yo, and the truth is, I do pretty well at my day job, and it hurts my progression as an artist because I'm very hungry. But I'm hungry enough to plan it in a way where in 5 years I get real stacks rather than try to rush it in a way where I end up facing pitfalls because I'm privileged enough to have some insight into some of the next level shit I'm going to have to learn how to deal with. My attitude took a lot of adaptations. I'm 33. Who the fuck cares now how old I am if it's going to work out? I mean, at a certain point, you realize I'm never going to be a young whatever.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I can't have like the whole thing. It just means that the only thing that shifts is maybe some of the megalomaniac justifications of honestly behavior I'd probably find regrettable now.
Right.
So I just never got that part of it. But like, yo, I could still be 57 and end up doing all the stadiums. Like, that's the world we're in now. So like, fuck that. Like, it's game on. I got plenty of fucking time left. But
there's
like,
part of hip hop that's been like, yo, young, it's all about the youth and old people get out of here and stuff. But like hip hop is young as fuck too. So as it gets older, like the fans of hip hop that are going to be in their 50s and 60s soon, they're not just going to magically stop liking hip hop, right? Like it's just, it's going to grow still.
There's this wild thing that happened in music. It's like nobody writes about being in your 30s. You get a lot of old people shit in their 40s, but everybody in their 30s is trying to recapture their 20s across history and music. So it's kind of weird where so few people like play into this age where I'm like, say a word.
At 40, you just give up and accept it, right?
And then it's like now you're like usually a dad old enough and like you're kind of, but like, yo, and I'm not like 100, right? I'm sure you can find me examples, but really from a across the world perspective, this age group doesn't really seem to, because they're either famous where their lives are like surreal, like it's like Kendrick is my age. Mm-hmm. Where the dudes my age that made it and blew up at that, like some of the earliest examples is like Griselda, but even then they've been buzzing for a minute, you know.
Those guys are pretty old, right?
Yeah, older than me a little bit, I think. But like,
all right, I need an intermission for 2 minutes. We'll be right back. Is that cool?
Yes, totally. Like, bro, I was dying.
A long format interview, but a coffee right ahead of it.
Yeah, I drank a coffee and like half of this of water, and I'm like fucking dying, and I'm like, nah. But yo, I'm like this. I gotta hold up. If the guest is out, because yo, when I first started this, I was drinking coffee a lot more. This time of day, it is what it is. I gotta drink coffee. I don't care. But I was doing this shit at like 5, 6, drinking like a coffee on the interview and shit, or like right before the interview, and I would be running to the bathroom. Like we're talking sometimes like some of them Iron Solomon types, and I'd be having to take a pee break because I can't even focus no more. And it's like you realize that coffee makes you pee, and so you got to stop drinking coffee at a certain part of the day. But now it's like, bro, I woke up at 9 something today. It's like I'm still drinking coffee at this part of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
same thing.
But the beauty of Twitch is the
long trips to work. Long drives to work, and you're like, fuck, I should not have drank 3 coffees before I got in the car.
Yeah. The beauty of Twitch is everyone gets it because they can literally just look at how long the stream is and be like, sometimes I gotta pee like 8 minutes in, and I'm like, fuck, I gotta wait till it's at least an hour because why did I go live without? Anyway, that's enough about pee. But yeah,
back to the old Griselda. Like those guys are already aged, I think, right?
Or like Freddie Gibbs too. Freddie Gibbs blew up old as fuck as far as like hip hop goes. So it's like late 30s. Or
yeah, the little buzz.
Look at Run the Jewels. Yes, Killer Mike had a Grammy. Let's be real. But like at the end of the day, like these guys blew up at the end of their career. Like I'm saying, blew up. Like Run the Jewels got a Grammy nomination.
LP been doing big moves in the underground and then slowly working his way up. But yeah, Run the Jewels definitely like that's a next level of
that's what I mean. But look how old they are when they got it. So it's like
but they've been doing it the whole time though, right? Like it's not like they just started.
No. And I'm not implying that people, but like I'm not implying that anybody's just gonna start doing it. But take you could argue you put in a lot of years.
Yep.
Whether you had success is not the same thing as effort and time practiced, and sometimes success is related to really stupid branding choices and decision making in the business side of it.
I like to think that if I had continued on my path, that I would have been at least somewhat successful, just because of the reactions that we were getting from the crowds and from people. You know what I mean? Like we never got that big. And again, we were doing shows in very early stages. Like I feel like when we put that video on YouTube, it was like pretty early in the YouTube game, I want to say. I don't know. It wasn't as popping as it is now, for sure. Like there wasn't so many ads everywhere, that's for sure. So like, Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm stroking myself a little bit, but I like to think if I had tried a lot harder, if I didn't go the directions I did, then there could have been a potential for making it bigger. But like, it's
Yeah.
definitely, I think, the lack of work ethic and hustle in that direction was a huge negative effect. Sort of, if I was considering that outcome anyway.
I mean, I empathize with that. I look at it like I wasted about 7 years, 6, 7 years, easy. Not on practicing rapping. That part I was always down to do, but like the make it a career part is a lot more. I started to take it more seriously when I started podcasting, to be honest. I know it's weird, but like that was a move to put my name out there and build a brand and to like
Yeah.
take the entertainment side of the business a little bit different and create something that was more than just I'm a rapper putting out some rapidy raps up in this world. But like even to that end, I didn't even know any of the business shit that you're supposed to learn until I started interviewing motherfuckers, and the list of things I should have been doing since 2012 is pretty fucking big. Like pretty big. I'm
Yeah.
like, oof, no wonder I
Yeah, I
didn't get
never
what I
I never
wanted.
learned any of the business stuff. The shows I got were literally through friends that I knew. Like this, the first one again, like I said, was the YMCA. Was from this buddy that did those punk rock shows at the YMCA. The first real hip hop show I got was from a buddy I worked for or with at a day job that happened to do stuff in St. Catharines, which is a city about half hour, 45 minutes from here, closer to Niagara Falls. We did a show at the University of Toronto that was like a music show slash modeling show, but that was because my cousin was in the university program. So it was like, it's all these networking sort of ins that I stumbled on, you know what I mean? Even like there was 3 shows, 2 at a place called the Red Rooster that was here in town in Burlington, and one, the last show, which was at a place called the Corktown in Hamilton. I don't even know if it's still going on. Um, those shows I got by picking up one of those like local newspaper magazine sort of things that every big town has. I don't know if you're. I mean, I don't even know if that's really a thing anymore, but it used to be big. Again, before back in my day.
Yo, it's wildly interesting. If the newspaper targeted older people, they tend to be around, and if they did not, they don't be around. Because we have one of them that survived. It's the one that
Right,
targets old people.
right. So at the time that we're talking about, it was definitely like there was a independent music scene buzz in there too. Like they talk about old people stuff that was like locally sort of relevant, and then they'd have a lot of stuff that was more cultural that obviously catered a little more to the youth. But the one, I forget which one, I want to say it's called The View, but maybe I'm wrong. But it literally had a list and one of the back pages of all the venues that do live music of any kind. So there was like 200 clubs that are just around the area that most of them I didn't know what the hell they were. And I'd literally just phoned them all up one after the other. Hey, I got this thing. Check my MySpace. Yeah, MySpace account, because we had like 3 songs on the MySpace account. And, if you guys are doing hip hop shows, blah, blah, blah. And like out of the 200 phone calls that I made, I got 2 venues that were fucking with me. And the one put us back on, right? So it's a way different hustle, man. Like that's the
No, no,
only
no,
part
no.
of the business
This is
section I
the this
learned.
is all this time later. I'm sitting there behind the scenes complaining. Yo, who the fuck's gonna be making lists of all the people we have to cold call? That's currently my struggle. Is who the fuck gonna do that part? Because I'm
You
not the
can't
right.
Google that though. You can't Google just
I'm not the right
venues in
person. I don't
Montreal.
have the right demeanor to personally do it. And as far as time goes,
Yeah, no, me neither. There's,
I kind of, but I'm currently Googling other stuff that I think is worth prioritizing. So
yeah,
inevitably, but yes, I do believe in the power of all of that, but it's just that it's so lengthy. It's like one of
yeah,
those things where for the next 2 to 3 years of my life, it's going to be spent making these really, really big lists of everything, blog sites that still accept it, because I don't even care if it gets viewers. I just want to have it. I want to be able to have like 60 blog placements a day a track comes out for the SEO signals. And like,
yeah,
because that shit's going to play back to the algorithm. That's going to tell Spotify you're more relevant than your boy spinning some shit. why do you think they embed your album into all their shit? You know what I mean? So like, they can track all that shit. So it's really just a maximization game. And then I'm sure there's a little payola, and on a budget of like X amount, I can figure out the right number I'm willing to spend on the right places to get enough organic spins back on my Spotify to like make it back, and then funnel that back into that and create like a pipeline. But all of it is literally just lists and cold calling until you find contacts you fuck with. That's how everybody's on playlists right now. Not the bot ones, but they Googled playlist and went through that hustle. Like, that's literally the only hustle that I can think of that makes any sense right now, is to find lists of relevant information, cold call the whole thing. That's what your manager is going to do if you get a manager. That's
exactly. And I don't like cold calling people, man. But I wanted to fucking rap. I wanted to do a show. Like, I don't like public speaking. I don't like cold calling. I don't like, being in front of people. But I wanted to rap, and I was like, there's things you got to do the thing that you want to do. And once I did it, it was kind of, like I said, I felt a little more sated, right? So maybe that's why I faded away from a lot of that. Part of it too was like the drifting apart I told you about. Like, at some point, I started to feel like I was trying a lot harder to keep it together than the other people involved. And that's no hate towards them. Like, they, everybody's got to pursue the things that they got to pursue. But when you start to feel like that, you get discouraged. And I think, and that's, part of it, what happened to me. But like, yeah, like there's things you got to do. If I wanted to rap at shows, it wasn't like, I can't just sit in my room and rap on my Xbox karaoke program and expect somebody's going to come to my door and be like, yo, you got to come to do this show. Like, you had to do it. And it's like, you want to rap? Well, you got to do it in front of people. I can't, you know what I mean? Like, you can make songs and that's cool, but I wanted to do the live show just to prove that I could do it, to see how it felt and all that stuff. So we did it, right? That's just, you do it how you got to do it. And now it's like, if you want to do the same thing, you have such an infinitely larger reach of potential lists, but like, you almost have to, it's work to make a list of lists.
But it's even more than that.
It's a bigger net, but you have to work harder for it.
And then everyone else has that list, so now my email has to be that much tighter, and there's a lot to it. Not to say that I'm not going to do it. It's just I have a project I'm not talking about that's taking up my focus that prevents me from getting to it.
Of course, yeah. Like I said, man, we do the things that we got to do, right? Like, at that time, I wanted to do a show, and if I wasn't going to actually physically go and drop CDs off to all these places, which was obviously a way more ridiculous proposal, when there was literally a list of phone numbers right there, at least I can, cycle through that. So that's what we did. We got a couple of good shows out of it.
Yeah, somebody got to make more of these repositories again. Which, again, why nobody does it? Because it's so boring to make lists. But, look, that's what market research really comes down to. It's like,
I think it's a little less relevant too now to do the cold calling. If you can build up a following online, people will come to you, right? Like, if you can.
How do you build up that following though, right? Because that comes down to some
word of mouth with the songs. Like, what's Soulja Boy? What did he do?
He really gamed the system on ringtone rap and did a lot.
Like, so yeah, I mean,
he's a marketing fucking genius. Like, Soulja Boy is like, people don't like this. His impact on hip hop is gonna be in a book one day next to every other impactful person on hip hop.
I agree, but it won't be for his rapping.
It will be for his marketing genius.
100%.
No disrespect 100%. To his music, because I still fucks with his shit to this day. I like Soulja
I never
Boy's
did that
music.
much. Even right from the beginning, I thought the steel pan synthesizer was a little, I didn't dig it. So like, anyway, but that's besides the point. It really has, again, he wasn't making music for me, so it didn't have anything to do with it, right?
Nah.
But I agree 100%. He's going to be in books about hip hop, especially in the marketing, part of it.
The whole music industry, like, people, because here's what I think happened. People were like, fuck a label, own your masters. But then nobody really said what that meant to anybody. And everybody I talked to who's ever worked at a major label and didn't have a weird experience loved it. And I've talked to more of those in my journey than not. Like, I'm talking about actually worked on a major that I talked to. Nobody had shit experiences.
Both, if you can, right? Like,
well, it depends on you. If you want to
own your masters,
if you
It's
can own
not
your
bad.
masters, you still have to now sell your masters because now you're the
And that's what the
label.
label's for.
So now you need to be a marketing guy and a promotional guy or find these people. So now you're basically a label. So like,
That's what
you
I'm
know,
saying. So
like,
like if you could potentially get the label deal and still own your masters, that'd be it'd be
or
a
like,
sweet spot potentially,
even
right? But
like, I mean, what am I going to do with my masters? I can do a lot with what the label does with my masters. I'm not saying I'm right now. I'm saying these are
but
the
if you
mental
don't, I
exercises
think
I
the
have.
problem with the masters is working out any deals. Like you don't have
I don't
the
have a legal.
original, so it's not like the ownership is in question,
I don't even care about
right?
that. You know what? I would take shitty cuts of copyright money made on music that like was a percentage or something. That would be more than what I might be able to do in the next 2 years.
Okay, there's shitty cuts which can amount to something, but I think
Or
the
clout,
masters argument comes more
because
from like deals where it's like I'm giving you this much for the masters and now I own it. You got this much, you can't come ask me for more
bro,
later. So like
all I'm
for
saying is
example,
give me that 5 figures and buy out my shit right now, please. I don't give a fuck
you
about
say that
anything
now.
I own. I say
You
that now for
know
sure. I don't care.
you know
But
the
I'm not
song
gonna
Bad Boy?
have. But here's the thing: I'm not gonna have this fucking weird remorse for it later on when they're making crazy money on my shit because
You
I'm
might.
conscious and caught. But I am doing this with like the full understanding of what that means because I'm looking at it like that 5 figure infusion right now would change my life forever, and that maybe it's not gonna
That's true.
happen for
And there's
me.
benefits to that too. I'm gonna give
And
you a good
I'm
example.
like,
You know the
I'll
song
just
Bad
write.
Boy?
Yeah, go on.
So it's a group called Inner Circle, a reggae group that is huge throughout the world. Not because of Bad Boys. Most people that know Bad Boys don't know the group name Inner Circle. They get nothing from that. Nothing, because they signed away early on for I don't know what the amount was. But imagine now looking back, thinking, and again, that song didn't necessarily give them fame because they're not famous in Canada or the States the way they are in the rest of the world, which is where that song is mostly played, not just in
No,
the
I hear
TV
you.
show, but movies, right? So they've got their fame and are very successful touring reggae, like worldwide big festivals. We're talking huge. Inner Circle, if you look them up, you'll see they're big, big, big name. Um, but they don't get nothing from that. So don't you think that they probably feel a type of way
I don't
where
know,
like
man. Because
there
if
was
I'm
so
in,
much money made off of
I feel
this
like
and
that's
y'all didn't
like
give me none of it?
I feel like
Like
that's
you didn't
that's
give me, I
one
wrote
way.
the song.
I feel like that's a way to interpret it, but there's just other ways to interpret it. And I'm going with my current life and everything that I'm facing. I'm like, you know what? It might be nice to have somebody do something like that if the number's right. Like, what am I
Yeah,
gonna
the
do with
numbers
it?
right. But
But
that's the
that's
whole
where,
problem is that
and
the
I
stigma
admit
of owning
that
your masters
people.
or not comes from a time when people were not getting their numbers right. You know what I mean? They were
And
getting
I hear
the
you.
like you might get a $500,000 check for one of your songs tomorrow. If you in 10 years see a guy make 5 billion off it, you don't think you're gonna feel some type of way that none of that
Bro,
money is
if
coming a
somebody
little bit
is
towards
gonna
you?
give me $500,000 and I can't turn that into something by myself, that's just my attitude, though. So might be where I'm not saying I'm everyone. I'm saying I've spent a better part of a decade having this debate with the world. You know, you kind of get
There's,
an idea, and I know myself now, so I can't tell you what future me might be. It might have a lot to do with it. If I'm successfully touring the world, I'm living my dream. So I'm pretty okay with another man's making money on my shit because I can just figure it out.
I
Now,
mean, that's
if I'm not living my dream and I'm up in an apartment by myself struggling, I'll be saltier than you would believe. So it has a lot to do with the situation, but I'm saying that I think there's a lot to be said that if I got $500,000 right now, that would change my life in ways that I want more than I think I could do by owning these particular
but what
intellectual
if they
property
said,
at this time.
all right, never mind the half a mil, you get 100,000 and 10% of everything. You don't think that'd be better?
For Holden right now, I don't know. That's a big question, but I think I could
It
do
isn't,
more
and
with
that's really the question, right? And it's kind of like
economically though. I think I'd rather have the $500,000 than worry about the 10% because I'm not worried about. Here's where I'm at. I'm so confident in my future self's ability to make money that fuck that shit. I'll do better by myself. Is my
that's
attitude.
fair, but you still there's still like these guys stole on you.
Did they? Because I went consensually. Yeah. But no, I'm not saying for people who are ignorant.
In some cases.
I would argue that in the case where you're preying on ignorance and desperation.
Which is what it was.
But in the current.
It's, well, again, that's where I'm saying
going,
where the stigma comes from.
So that's why I'm questioning it like now, because like what I see is a lot of independent artists who don't want to do any of the other work.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the point of owning that master?
I mean, I still think there would be some value in at least having a percentage of your masters, at least. So if some does, and that's just, you know, having
you're absolutely right.
People
but we're talking
get screwed over.
So I wouldn't necessarily give everything up for 5 racks. That would maybe be too small.
The numbers are pretty irrelevant, really. Like, you could change the numbers up and down.
$500,000, just to be clear, is a number I would take without question, whereas a smaller number I would question. And there's a value point that I don't have figured out where I believe I can do without that infusion. And then I think everyone has to be honest with themselves about how much money they can realistically generate without somebody basically being a patron towards their cause. When you take into scope how expensive it is to pay people to do things good for you.
It's just, yeah, man. It's just, so like you say now you take the 500 or the $500,000 clean. But
that would be without
when you're in the record labels and you got a briefcase with $10,000 in it with a group of, you know, kids that are 14 to 20 years old.
Yeah.
And like you're preying on their.
And I'm gonna say that I agree with you that predatory practices, which I don't think are as common as they used to be, they're not like what it was.
I think you're right about that.
And that's why I'm having this, is because I keep talking to people who have such positive label experiences, and I'm like, okay. And then I think about all this shit I have to do as an independent artist, because now I'm trying to get my shit together. I'm 33. It's do or die, motherfucker. Like, I'm turning 34 in 3 weeks. Fuck my life. So it's like, you know, I can't be like waiting till I'm really out of steam to like get the shit. But then it's like the list of things you really have to worry about and manage. Like, booking is a job. Then there's publicist shit, which is where you deal with the blogs and the radios, and you want the radio play because you have the SoCan money and the blah, 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 blah. And it turns into like, yo, I already work and do all this content shit, but this content shit's helpful to get me to the point where I can even attract the help. And basically, you have to structure yourself in a company and find people to, like, it turns into, like, you're either running your own independent label or you're attached to a label. Because, what changed? You know, like, that's why I'm bringing it up like that, because I think
a lot of
people understand the scope of it.
Right? So many people got screwed, and it eventually ended up coming out that the labels maybe had to be less predatory than they were.
But listen, if that label makes that crazy amount of money on my work, it's like cool. And I know that there's a way of looking at it where it might feel like I'm owed a sense of entitlement to it. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't have those moments where I felt salty, but I think, like, understanding business the way I do now, $500,000 liquid is really different than a number on a paper that mostly got paid out and the net total amount is this, that, the next thing, right? Sometimes numbers is weird. 500 liquid, but 500 liquid, it means I have $500,000 in an account that if I do things correctly, I can quit my job and live the life I want. And I think I want that
a lot of times
that more than I want fucking to own some shit in the future and to worry about things, you know? Like, that's how I feel. Like, I want that life more.
And I think part of it is, again, like, it's because of what happened in the past. There's almost like the trauma response now, right? Where it's like,
then labels,
that 500,000 is great, but like, you took the thing I made, and I want some.
Bro, but then the experiences they're gonna give me back are crazy too if it goes well.
It could be, man. It could go.
So check it. Like, I talked to the. Do you know who the?
Wonder why he gave you 500,000. If they gave you 500,000, they think they can make 5 million at least. Or
I'm super happy about that. That's cool, because they're gonna spend so much money on that shit. It's like millions of dollars just to get you on the radio and shit. So like, when you understand how expensive it is to really get the reach that they're gonna give you, yo, check it. I talked to the Bad Seed. He was part of the Lyricist Lounge, the Seed dude. He was rolling with Gene Gray and them. So I was like, talk to that dude. He got a record label at Warner. It was good. It didn't work out because Warner consolidated and it went bad, but not like bad because of his experiences. But anyways, he's related to the Mims guy that This Is Why I'm Hot, whatever. So he was telling me about going on tour with the guy who had the #1 song in the world. and what the label did and what the label really can do for you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, own my shit. I want that. I can't do that. I could never do that on my own to the scale that they can. So fucking take my shit. Let me have memories that I can't make on my own, please.
Yeah, that's fair, man. I mean,
that's, and I'm not speaking for everyone. I'm just trying to give another side to the coin where I'm at today.
The labels do tons. They do really have the potential to lift you into all sorts of other levels.
I mean, I would love my own indie label.
Personally, I wouldn't be able to give away 100%. You know what I mean?
To be fair, I would love to just write for services, bro. Like, oh, say word, you want me to write you an ad and you own it all and my name's not on it? Bitch, please.
I agree with you there. That'd be a lot different though, right? Like I feel like there's yeah, it is, man. Because you can be more attached to something that's personal than like an ad. You know what I mean? There's a difference between doing a beautiful graffiti scape on a wall and wanting to get recognition for it, and then getting paid $400 to spray paint the whole house one color. You know what I mean? Like one is a job and one is art.
Well, to be fair, right? I would argue that if I'm getting paid to write a song, now I got to write a song and I'm a songwriter doing my full maximum potential. Now it may be on a topic that is not Holden. It's still going to be an art piece I love, bro.
It's true, man. And I feel like you'd still be smarter to at least own a little bit of it so that it keeps hitting you later on.
Because like I look at it like end of the day, the real money's not in that. It's in like, I'm going to be real. This is my big strategy, everyone. I would love to be able to just charge people $200 to tell me have me teach you how to Google. Because my $200 an hour of me teaching you how to Google will save you that much time that it's worth $2. The more of those opportunities I get, the more I can make that kind of money per hour on my own efforts.
But that's not, what does that have to do with art or hip hop?
Oh, I'm just saying the money side of it, right? Because this is all about the money side of it. So
that's teaching, right? Like,
but the ownership side of it is all about cash. It's just business to me. What will make me, Holden Roy, the most over 10 years? The rest of it is fucking irrelevant to me.
I mean, I feel like I've heard a lot of artists talk about residuals and stuff that they live off of just because they owned a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, but Sir Mix-a-Lot doesn't have to do anything ever again if he doesn't want to.
Fair, but I like the service kind of economy.
Maybe that's one case in a million. I don't know. I don't know the numbers.
I do think that I am not that guy at 33 with the lack of fame in my life, to be honest. So I have to think a little more grounded and realistically about things.
I suppose that makes sense.
And I think it's a lot more attainable that in the current market to think about it less like a retail economy, which is where the label shit gets kind of like confusing to me because there's less money in retail and a lot more money in services, which is why I do a lot. So if you support me, you know you're going to get a lot. What is it going to be? I don't know. It might evolve. I might even go in directions you don't like. If you were a big fan of my album reviews, you'd be kind of salty maybe that I'm not on that right now. But the fact is like I'm going to do a lot. And I'm not worried about making money on the sales or ownership or ads of a particular episode. It's more like I just want to find a lot of people that are down to like throw money at me because they think I'm cool or they fucks with what I do.
That's fair. If you get enough people that'll follow you,
I think that's an easier.
That's valuable as hell.
There's currently a dude spending $25 a month, and it baffles me.
That's incredible.
There's not a lot of people like that, don't get me wrong. But it's happened more than once that somebody was willing to pay me that. And I'm like, okay. But it doesn't matter if I have it at scale yet. But if you can find one person that's even willing to give you that for a couple of months, it kind of goes, yo, I could never have sold my music that much to that guy.
Mm-hmm.
This is why businesses, by the way, are renting you software. They're not selling you software anymore. So just as a sign of like where real economic trends are going. They're retaining ownership.
They're keeping their masters.
It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with subscription models. Because the acquisition cost of taking on...
But that's what the master is. The master is you're making the label subscribe to you. They got to pay you.
Let me reframe this. So under the model where I care about the masters and ownership is under the impression I give a shit about selling the music. So they're not trying to sell you the software to own it. You don't own it anymore. You rent access to an ecosystem of experiences is what all app companies are trying to do. Just look at Adobe and everything they're pushing for. They're like the model everybody's chasing. Dropbox, it's not just one thing. It's an ecosystem of apps built into it so you never have to leave it. Facebook, it's not just one thing. And that's really the future. So inside of that, everybody's pushing what my boy Scott Galloway, he's my favorite marketer, calls the Rundle model. Apple's currently heavy pushing on it. They're going to end up at a point where you give Apple $80 a month and you get everything. Why? Because it's a guaranteed $80 a month. Everything else actually costs less if you cut marketing costs. Like the difference between a AA and a AAA video game is usually not the game. It's the marketing budget. And so like when you think about shit like that, if you get people on a subscription, you have them. Now you don't have to spend a shit ton of money to reacquire you in the future. Like the old model would have been you buy version 1, then you got to buy version 2. Look at Microsoft. They're like, fuck that. Xbox Game Pass, baby. Sony's doing it too. Everywhere you look, everybody's giving you a little subscription poo because it's guaranteed money over time. And they have a percentage.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. That's what makes masters good, is the guaranteed money over time.
So the way I see it is if I'm selling my music, then I worry about that. If I'm selling myself, then the content's irrelevant because you just got to give me the money directly for being myself. And it changes the way you got to think about it. And now you're an influencer who makes music. You're not a musician selling records. And now the whole business model shifts and the way you're thinking about it reframes. And that's kind of where I see music going. If you want to be profitable in the indie sphere, because, it really is like, I'm going to sell. Every music video should have a merch drop attached to it so you can sell some hoodies. That's, you know what I mean? Like, You're not even selling the music. The music's an ad for your next shit. And that's kind of what Jake Paul and them were doing. And unfortunately, it was super effective.
But that's the trouble with that shit, is that works. Like, it becomes not about the art.
Well, you got
know what I mean? Like, it's not about, with Jake Paul, it's not about if he's a good boxer. Like, it has nothing to do with his boxing skill.
No,
you know what I mean? But there's more money in it. Or it's like the fucking epic rap battles in history. You know how much more views those get than actual good battles that battlers...
They used to try. Let's give them props that in the first couple of seasons, they put a lot of effort into actually making it good rap.
I'm not even saying it's good or bad rap. I'm just saying this is a parody of the real thing, and it's doing better than the real thing ever did. Do you know what I mean?
Gimmicks, and it was all gimmicks.
It's like if Weird Al, if you didn't know Beat It, and you heard Eat It, and you were like,
exactly
yeah, this is the jam.
That's what happened to me. I didn't hear Beat It first. I heard Eat It first, bro. Weird Al, it taught me about classic jams. It was not the other way around.
Amazing. Now,
you know
to be
I'm
fair,
fat.
I don't want to shit on Weird Al because that guy's a musician.
Fucking
you know
amazing.
What I mean? But Jake Paul's not a boxer. He just is boxing now. Like you said, he's an influencer that's boxing. He's not a boxer that became an influencer.
Unfortunately, a lot of the institutions failed to adapt to modern markets because, honestly, hubris. I learned this through talking to local politicians. They don't want to... So the young people don't care about them. So instead of adapting to reach the young people, they continue doing what they're doing and change the goalposts. Like, as an example, if you're not registered to vote in Montreal right now, to get registered to vote by November 7th is going to be fucking hard because the city's not going to make it. So, you know what I mean? They changed the goalpost to reality.
What do we mean by young people, though? Let's define that, because if we're going too young, we can't vote, and that's not in the interest of the politician anyway.
18 to 40.
Okay.
18 to 40.
Gotcha.
I'm going with that level of range because they just assume most of us ain't going to go vote. Why? Because we're not homeowners for the most part. We better in a condo, but a condo is more like an apartment than not in the context of all this shit. So you're not a homeowner community invested member. So the assumption is if you own your home, you're part of your little community, you're going to care more about the local issues like park benches and shit. And it's always going to come back to shit like park benches because they're the only quick wins they can use on discretionary budgets without actually having to get approval. So they're going to campaign on tangible things, get a bunch of parents, maybe some dog owners. It's weird. I know this now because I've been doing this and I'm analyzing it in my head. But the reality is they don't give a fuck about me. I'm going to think and ask questions and shit. And I'm not invested in like the thing because I don't know how. It is, but then you have the realization that I go talk to all my homeboys and they're like, boy, it's boring. It's boring. I don't give a shit. They don't show up to learn the shit. So now you reach the part where, cool, you learn things, you know things, you're like, I got ideas, let's run it. But it's boring, that part where you learn the things. And unfortunately, if you're also not up to like where I'm at with the learnings on some issues, it's just going to be like, blah, 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 I don't give a fuck. And I get that because I'm like that with a lot of things that I don't give a shit about. And it's just, don't even ask me about foodie shit, bro. I'm done. I don't know about the good restaurants in town. Don't even try. So there's like lots of things that just don't, and like it's kind of how people is. So if you want to get me to care about food, you're going to have to try like way fucking hard compared to like stuff I already give a shit about. And that's just kind of how we wired now. And it's like, so nobody cares about politics because all the issues are fucking boring, and nobody wants to talk about corruptions because city councilors make serious cash relative to the average person, and they can do very little work, and it's a job. And I'm not shitting on any city councilor. I'm just saying there's perceptions that I've learned. So I don't want to be sitting there being like, fuck a city councilor, because some of them be really good, and some of them really take their shit proper. But some of them also don't, and at the end of the day, everyone feels like everything's futile and pointless, and instead of like coalescing as a group of people trying to like actively change our community and the blah blah blah, like we don't. But partly because I feel like everything's gated and kept out of sight, almost because they don't even do anything to adapt to speak to us. So it's like, and you realize that people in power have no desire to change the status quo. And it's really, so you're dealing with that as well. So that everybody going against the people in power are going, but that 30% of the population that votes, and now everybody's competing for that. And ain't nobody really thinking about the 70% that may vote if the conversation was different, or if they saw an actionable path forward, or if there was a person/thing to be galvanized and care about, or maybe even if there was some fucking podcasts or YouTube videos.
I'll take it one step further. I think they actively do it on purpose so that younger people that don't want to change the status quo have less motivation to vote.
Facts. I mean, I thought about canvassing.
Yeah, we do need a lot more community sort of involvement, and I'm probably the worst to talk about this because I'm often guilty of, retracting from any community. But yeah, that's the only way to fix that type of stuff is really for more people to get together. And then, if you had a legitimate number that voted, you'd get more people concerned with your vote.
From what I understand, the margins are slim enough in some races where I could personally, if I had more time, galvanize enough people to swing an election in a local district. Like, we're talking under 1,000 people would change the vote. I'm sorry, but with good work.
For local stuff, for sure. Yeah, I believe that.
So it's like, when you realize that, it's like not what you think. And then when you realize that, like, these are kind of your advocates and shit, and if we don't even know how the system works. And so I realized nobody makes educational videos or anything to, like, try to bridge that gap from the political sphere because, again, there's not a lot of motivation to. It's not like the city wants us all to realize everything that's weird about the city. I'm pretty sure that that's not like the goal of the city. But I'm talking like the bureaucrats, like the approval people, like the ones who are like, fuck that, we're not going to change the website. Like those guys. They're like legacy career people. Apparently, the average city councilor in Montreal's age is like 50-something or up. I'm like, say a word. And then young people don't want to run because we don't want to be judged for smoking weeds and shit. And I'm like, that's it. I was
maybe that stuff will slowly change soon anyway.
Well, I got asked if I would run because one of the parties, it was possible I probably could have gotten on if I tried. And I'm like, no, because I don't want to not smoke weed in public. And it really, because all the political candidates that we're trying to win were like, I can't be seen smoking joints with you. Holla at me when the election's done. If I'm not in, we can go run a thing. And I'm like, say a fucking word. And I'm like, I have no desire to imagine winning and not can't smoke weed in public for 4 years.
Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me? There's no amount of money that would make me feel enticed to take on that job. So I got to wait like half a decade before the world can catch up to that.
Well, you guys in Quebec are a little behind on that stuff still, aren't you? As far as Canada, you can't grow stuff yourself, right?
I understand that it's like on the books, no, but contested to yes. So like you
Right.
can, they can't do any like. It's like nobody's gonna do shit, so people do grow.
Well,
But
they'll come
like,
take your stuff if they find out about it. You might get away with it.
no, no,
No?
because the cops are not going to enforce it. The city won't enforce that. You know, people won't
Gotcha.
enforce it. So it's like on the books for the sake of political fear mongering, like a lot of these laws, because
Yeah.
the whatchamacallit, the fucking CAC or whatever is in power, and weed prohibition-y type things was part of their campaign promises. So it's like easy win shit when you're
Right.
like running on such limited platforms, and they could do it because they have a majority government. So basically they could change laws, but the enforcement of this shit, like, yo, you're gonna run up your court system if you really push that shit. You really want to have judges fucking dealing with weed plant cases all the time?
Yeah.
Nobody
It's silly.
wants that. Nobody's gonna actually do that unless you're like the obnoxious fucker with like 17,000 neighbor complaints because somehow you didn't do shit
Well,
all
yeah,
the.
there's that. And like, it's one of those things where it makes it like, okay, we want you for whatever reason, and we know you do this
Yeah,
thing that we usually don't care about, but we're going to put that on the books because it's technically illegal, even though we wanted to get you for another thing. You know what I mean? It's like,
I'm like
I
90%
see what you're
certain
saying, though, right?
that's what most of the weed laws is for. I think a lot of it, like
Yeah.
a lot of the apartment weed laws, is gentrification. But I pay the good side of rent, so they're not gonna kick me out if I pay my rent on time.
Yeah.
But if I ever didn't pay my rent on time, watch how I'm gone for smoking weed.
That would be the reason they'd give, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, because that's what they
Yeah.
would do. So I feel like the laws are more enacted for shit like that. Or if they ever wanted to like sell my building and kick everyone out, I'd be in some trouble in that moment.
Yeah.
But like honestly, it's like those cases where it's like clauses not for like regular life. Like the mayor at NDG was all like, "Yo, they shouldn't be talking to you about smoking pots." Except, well, because the cops came up to me, but apparently I was too close to kids, which leaves
Right.
me with this subjective understanding of is there a physical distance of being too close to kids to smoke weed in public, and what does that mean?
That's the thing, right? Like, I try to avoid children when I'm out in public. Like, I'm not going to walk by the school, or like, I might even
Well,
cross the
I was
street.
legit,
You
and
know what I
I'll
mean? But
give the
like,
cops some credit. I was
if we're in the
like,
smoking section and there's other people with cigarettes around and shit, like, fuck right off.
but there's no smoking section in this park anymore, and I realized there
Right.
was no good place in this park for me to smoke weed without me feeling like I could be too close to a baseball diamond or a soccer
Gotcha.
field or a
Yeah.
dog park that they just added and all this
Yep.
shit. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm a lot. Whereas other parks like Girard Park, it's like, fuck that. The kid shit's over there. The rest of the park's adult land. Get the fuck out of here
Right.
with your kid.
Yeah.
Turns out it works out like that in real life, and it's cool. So it's just a little strategy, but yeah, there's technically a rule on the books where it's a $600 ticket if you smoke weed too close to where kids congregate and play.
And is there a number, like a distance number, or is this
I
just
didn't
too
Google
close?
it. I don't know what it meant. I didn't Google it, and I didn't want to have. I mean, I just figured I'm not going to smoke weed at that location I previously enjoyed smoking a
For sure,
joint
for sure. I'm just,
at.
yeah, just out of curiosity's sake, is it one of the things that's like it's up to the officer to decide what's too close, or is
Everything's
there an
up to the
actual like,
fucking officer to decide. You know, like
yeah,
nobody's pulling out
unfortunate.
a fucking ruler.
And that's the thing, right? Like, it's again, like we said, it's certain laws are there to get at certain people. They're not really
And they're
about the actual thing the law says.
But
You
in
know what
their
I mean?
defense, I kind of agreed with the cops when I reassessed the situation and decided it wasn't the best park for me to go do this activity in. So, like, I'm not
Fair
saying the
enough.
cops was acting out of line. Like, there was a baseball game behind me. It was kind of like you could probably smell it over there. Like, what am I really doing? I'm supposed
Yeah,
to be
fair
a
enough.
fucking adult. And I was like,
So mature.
fine. Fine, police. In this case, they didn't give me a ticket, too. It was more like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A little slap on the wrists and just don't do
they
that
don't know
again.
my name, you know? So it's like, we're good.
Yeah.
Yo,
No,
adulting
there
is
was
hard.
a a movie about weed and weed history years ago. That was, I want to say, it was narrated by Woody Harrelson. That talked about it first becoming illegal in a certain area because it was just a way that, like, it was Mexican immigrants that predominantly were doing that. So it was their way to get at and harass Mexican immigrants legally. it wasn't actually like nobody really cared about the marijuana aspect of it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, there's
you
also a
always got
whole
to
part
question that.
to there's a whole part to weed laws if we want to just dip on that for a second, where there was the FBI and then another enforcement agency at the same time competing for media hype because media hype determined budgeting. So the
Hmm.
FBI was busting up like mobs and coke deals and high profile shit. So this other agency tried to get attention, and so they created a bunch of anti-weed propaganda and basically went to war on weed. And it turned
Yeah.
out that there was no big syndicate for weed because it's such a small scale operation to manage
Right.
everywhere across the whole country. And then the ditchweed campaign happened where they needed hemp for the war, which
Yeah.
definitely didn't help anybody's case. So that agency folds because it spent so much time trying to vilify weed that it ended up
Yeah.
not justifying its value. And that's a huge, it's not the only thing because racism's a big part of it, a few other things, but that was like a huge, I don't remember the dude's name, but it was a huge part of like, um, why weed is stigmatized the way it is, because like they did some studies in India and shit like in the 1800s or late 1800s, like the, I don't know, and somewhere near the end of colonialization, where they were trying to measure the impact of people like basically drinking weed tea and working, and they found that like people did better when they were high all the time and there was no
I could
real
believe that in
issues.
certain jobs, man. Like there was, I used to press records for a little while. And if I was, nice and lit up and you just get into this nice little rhythm and everything's going fucking smooth. And so I could see that for a lot of jobs for sure.
Yeah. So and it was just more the lack of harmfulness, but then they made it a class A drug, which makes it illegal to do studies on. So for like 100 years, there's one university in the whole states that's allowed to publish studies on weed. So like
Yeah.
that's why
I
we're
wonder if
at
they're
where we're
biased.
at. Probably not. They're probably like super legit, but when you get to like the greater conversation, everyone's attitude is like, "Well, where's the data?" Well, there's literally like a lid on people being allowed to study stuff up until the recent legalization campaign. So we just don't have the kind of data and studying that we would have on other shit because of U.S. intervention.
Yeah.
Canada had the data, nobody cared. Europe had the data, nobody cared. That's what was
No, that
used to
doesn't
kind of
sell
push the
pills, man.
legalization.
Marijuana data does not sell pills, or at least true marijuana data. Like
I
accurate data does not sell pills.
sincerely think it's more the prison side of shit. Weed's a good way
Yeah,
to get
could
a
be
lot
some
of
of that
people
too.
locked up.
Little free labor. Yeah.
I really believe weed laws were kept the way they were for a long time for that reason, with the
Yeah.
privatization of prisons and shit. Because
But you see now the businesses that are trying to make it illegal to grow or sell, unless they're them. You know what I mean? Like they're
yeah,
lobbying to get it, so it's like you can't, like dispensaries got to run under our system specifically. You know what I mean? So it's like
it's like the same people behind like
it's
Imperial Tobacco and all that.
yeah. The real laws are literally about profit, not about protecting people, right? Like
Yeah, there's
if
some weird.
tobacco laws were about protecting people, there either wouldn't be tobacco available or it wouldn't be jammed full of all the stuff that it's jammed full of. It's about taxes and money. You know what I mean?
I think a lot of the initial weed laws were about not pissing off parents. To be honest, because like you're trying to get reelected after if you're Trudeau, right? You got to make sure that you're good. So when you look at the laws, there's a lot of weird shit in it,
But
but
there's more. There's got to be a little more to it than that because I don't think parents wanted their kids
because
locked
he
up
left it
for
to the
weed.
provinces to do a lot of the weird shit.
Okay, yeah.
So I think he left it wishy washy so that he could make it just like, oh, it's scary to.
In Canada's case, I could agree with you because people weren't really going to jail for having weed on them.
Yeah, and then
You know what I mean?
Quebec
So
is the
like,
like so Quebec decided we the drug dealer bitches. That was a Quebec thing. Ontario
yeah,
decided you can sell drugs through us, or however they did it. Is my understanding of Ontario. Other provinces manifested it differently, but like that was all provincial shit, right? So it wasn't even
yeah.
like aligned with it. I'm pretty sure Quebec was cool with it staying illegal because rural
But
Quebec wasn't pro
well, yeah, and
legalization.
that's like, I mean, you might have years ago, you would have possibly attributed that to bikers wanting to keep certain things illegal, so they're the ones in control of the flow of money for it, right? Like,
I think it's again fear mongering.
There might be some of that.
The regular people out in the middle of nowhere face a different reality than, say, Montreal. I'd argue you're going to get a lot more artisty, bohemian types in urban centers versus rural populations. If you really want to run stats, I'm going to argue that in a lot of cases, certain shit gets correlated more with certain locations and certain types of people, et cetera, and it just runs into, like, the city's going to like weed more.
Yeah, then there's the question.
I might be mad fucking wrong on that, right?
Yeah,
this is me
too,
brainstorming.
man. Like, I don't know enough about it really, like, specifically to say, but I would say, like, there's the question of whether the rural votes are going to affect things as much as
rural votes own Quebec. In Quebec, hard facts. Montreal don't matter. It's just the way it's split up. The population centralized around us, but it's a matter of the seats. So the CAC did not. The CAC barely has fucking anything in Montreal. Montreal didn't fucking vote for them, but the rest of Quebec did. So they didn't talk to Montreal, and then that's why there's a lot of desire for Montreal to be a special zone. Frankly, like, it's different, and the truth is like, go look at an electoral map, man. It's like everything's off island. There's like one block or one CAC riding in the whole fucking greater Montreal area. So it's like, nah, it's kind of like that. It's also apparently like that in New York State. It's similar because
I have heard that about some states. I don't know about electoral maps that much, obviously, but I've heard that about some states where it's like,
so
the
what
control is dispersed out.
And so all the weed laws were set up for this too. Like, you got to think about it, right? So they're set up like, if you have private property, you can do what you want, but in public, it's illegal. Who does that affect? Right. If you're in a rural area, 9 times out of 10, you're on private property. It doesn't affect you, and your private property is big.
Yeah. Nobody sees anything that's going on.
And then, like, so a law that affects a place that is more renters and people living in apartments and shit. Like, it's just, you run these demos and you're like, oh, say word. It's actual politics that is dictating shit that governs my life. And it's like wild to think about the futility in provincial politics because the rural area is so powerful compared to Montreal. And I don't even know if it's like that in Ontario, but it's definitely like that in Quebec.
I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like there's definitely more of a focus on the urban areas.
It's probably similar.
I could be sort of wrong. Yeah.
And like,
but there's differences too, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff that's more focused on urban areas, I think. I don't know, it's hard to call, man. Like, there's a big section of Ontario that's rural. Like most, obviously. It's a pretty big province. Like Quebec too, right? Like,
you could argue, but you could argue from like a map perception, it's like everything's Montreal, a little bit that's Quebec City, and then it's all kind of small with Sherbrooke and shit being like the biggest it is. So it's not like there's a lot of population density in Quebec. It's just like the 2 or 3 spots, and then the rest of it is just sparse. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of zones when you come to the map. And it's like, say word. There's more zones not in Montreal, and those people's reality is going to win elections. Right. And I believe that's what ends up happening a lot, at least in this last election.
The people sort of, basically, the more land you own, the more valuable your vote is at a higher level.
Because if you... that's a fact. That would be a fact, I would say. I can't say hard fact, but that would be my understanding of things. Yes, you could make a claim like that for real.
It's all like you hear that about in the States about the Electoral College, right? How, like, if you live in this state, your vote is not as valuable as someone who lives in this state. So that's not cool.
It's like that with each region. That's why, like, I was kind of excited when Trudeau was talking about electoral reform, and there's this dude CP Gray on YouTube who explains it all using animals and animal kingdoms, and it's really visual, and you can't explain it as good as him, but you'll understand what the fuck they're talking about watching CP Gray's videos on fucking electoral reform. And that's so, and it talks about like how to handle proportionate voting by population and shit, but the truth is, you're gonna end up catering to the cities, or you're gonna end up catering to the rurals, and I think we need farmers more. So.
Or you have to separate. You either have to cater to one or the other if they're different, or you have to separate somehow, right? And then that's fucking. Now we're in tricky territory.
Right, because like I don't see, because if you go by population, you're just saying the cities are more valuable.
Right.
And that's just the truth of it, which is why it's a big conversation, and it's not just like one side wins. Because imagine life without farmers.
No.
It's a bad life, you know?
Yeah, it's not good. It's a bad thing.
Yeah. I appreciate this. Yo, this chat's like freaking dope. I like it a lot. I would say, though, I'm not 100% sure where to go with the conversation.
Well, maybe we've went. Maybe we'll have to save
it
for another time. Maybe once some more stuff is out, we'll have a little more stuff to talk about.
Nah, for real. Or figure something out. I really enjoy your vibe, man. I was just looking at the time and being like, say a fucking word.
Too, man.
It's
I
like
appreciate it. This was a good talk.
And I'm like, yo, it's cool. I'm not used to this time slot yet, so it's like I haven't learned how to pace my day properly. But I appreciate you, man. I really enjoyed this. I didn't actually notice time passing, and I just, Uncle Dre, you're a really interesting dude. You should definitely work your way into the podcasting game, my guy.
I appreciate that. Maybe I will, man. Maybe I'll pay for your $200 Google service. Yeah, you can teach me some stuff about that.
I don't know about that right now, but we can figure something out, man. Because, there's a lot to... This shit's way easier, honestly, than people really, really, really think it is. It's just conceptually hard to wrap your head around.
Right.
And once you get past that, it's easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely have some more talks about that then, maybe even a couple privater ones, and then see where that goes.
But no, I appreciate you for reals, and I appreciate everyone who's watching too, right? Because y'all stuck around, y'all are wonderful. All of you in the future who haven't even watched this yet and are like, that's dope, I should have been there in the live. You're right. But you're super cool for still being there. And then maybe you're watching a clip and you don't even see this part. That is also possible what happens. But still, it's amazing to see y'all actually come through each time. Do you have any like last things that you want to say to the found folk out there?
Yeah, man. Like you said, I appreciate anybody who took the time to watch, either live or in the future. That's fine. Primo. I don't feel important enough to be paid attention to usually, so this is very nice. And Holden, I appreciate that from you, man. I appreciate you taking your time.
No, man, it's my pleasure.
It's great. I love the conversation we had. I love that sometimes we disagree and sometimes we agree. That's dope. Yeah, stay tuned. Honestly, watch Eulogy, because that's where my next few projects are going to be. He's dope as fuck. We know that. I'm dope as fuck. I know that. Some of y'all are going to know that. And that'll be where the projects come out for the foreseeable future. And if that goes well, maybe I will do some solo stuff. And actually that reminds me of asking before about what kind of, original content I would write about. And I'm thinking maybe I might write about just parenthood type stuff in the future a little bit, because that's been obviously on my head. So, old man stuff, it's not going to be interesting to some people, but maybe to some others. We'll see. Anyway, it's all stuff to be played with. Yeah, we should talk again, though, for sure.
No, anyway, hold on. Anyway, one sec. Appreciate y'all for real. It's a good time to just wrap up. I'm just trying to kill the stream now. Live long and prosper. No, I appreciate you. I'm not trying to rush it. I just that was a weird moment. I got hungry. I'm not going to lie to everyone out there. So I'm going to hit the button. I appreciate everyone.